Wait, Mary, it's me, a voice said. It was my ex-husband. I couldn't believe it. 10 years ago, he ran away with my son's wife, Sarah, and they'd been missing ever since. I never wanted to think about them again, let alone hear from him. But now, after all this time, he called me. He didn't apologize or explain. Instead, he demanded, I'm going to live at your parents' house now. You're still living with them, right? You need to leave my house. I was stunned. We hadn't spoken in a decade, and now he wanted to take over my parents' house to live with the woman he betrayed me for. He even mocked me. So, you're still with your parents? Have you remarried yet? You should move out as soon as possible, he said, laughing. For the first time in years, I felt a wave of anger, but he didn't know one thing: I wasn't living with my parents anymore. I calmly replied, if you're talking about my parents' house, it's not here anymore. Huh? He sounded confused. This moment was a turning point for me. I wasn't the same woman I was 10 years ago. I was determined to stand up for myself. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Mary Kane. I'm 60 years old and work part-time as a teacher at a private school. Even though I've reached retirement age, I continue teaching because I love my job. Maybe it's because of my parents. They were both respected teachers, and growing up, I admired them and wanted to follow in their footsteps. I was once married to a man named Stephen. We were together for years before divorcing a decade ago. It was a painful breakup, and I never thought I'd hear from him again until his call today. Stephen and I met in college when I was 21. I was working part-time as a tutor while studying to become a teacher. Stephen, a new part-time tutor, had just joined. He was older, but I had more experience, so I was asked to train him. As we worked together, we became close and eventually started dating. After 3 years, we got married and had a son, Michael. Life seemed perfect. I found a full-time teaching job after graduation, and Stephen and I built a life together. Years later, Michael grew up, went to a design school in New York, and got married to Sarah. But everything changed after that. We were so happy for Michael when he got married. We wished him and Sarah a wonderful life together, hoping they'd build a happy family. One day, Michael came home unexpectedly. He hadn't visited in a long time since he'd been busy working as a figurine prototype designer, but something seemed to be troubling him. Mom, he started, you're still married to Dad, right? Yes, I replied, feeling thrilled to see him but also worried about where this was going. He hesitated before saying, I saw Dad with Sarah in Brooklyn the other day. I froze. Michael explained that last Friday night, he saw Sarah walking arm in arm with Stephen. They were in Brooklyn's hotel district. On his way home from work, Michael became suspicious and decided to follow them. He watched as they walked into a hotel together. I couldn't believe it. Stephen and Sarah were in-laws, and they always seemed to have a close, father-daughter-like bond, but meeting alone at a hotel? That was shocking. I wanted to dismiss it as a misunderstanding or some kind of mistake, but Michael had proof. He showed me a photo on his phone, clear as day. It was Stephen and Sarah walking into the hotel together, arm in arm. Then, it hit me. That same Friday night, Stephen had come home late. He said he'd been working overtime, but now I knew that was a lie. Looking back, I realized Stephen had been coming home late more often in recent months. He always had excuses: working overtime, going to happy hour with colleagues, or sudden business trips on weekends or holidays. At first, I believed him, but now it all felt suspicious. Could these excuses have been a cover to spend time with Sarah? I asked Michael to send me the photo and assured him I'd confront Stephen. After he left, I waited for Stephen to come home that night. When he finally arrived, he reeked of alcohol. The smell annoyed me, but I didn't back down. I went straight to the point. Stephen, I said boldly, I saw Michael today. Is it true you met with Sarah last Friday? Stephen froze for a moment before stammering. Yes, we briefly met. I think I mentioned it, didn't I? His nervous reaction made it clear he was hiding something. His eyes darted around as he tried to read my expression. What did he say? Stephen asked cautiously, clearly uneasy. I confronted Stephen with the truth. Michael said he saw you and Sarah walking into a Brooklyn hotel together, I said, holding up the picture Michael had shown me. Stephen's face froze. His eyes widened in shock, darting around as if looking for a way to escape. He sighed deeply, as if he had no choice but to admit the truth. I can't believe Michael noticed me, he muttered. I guess I got carried away. Stephen, no, I exclaimed, stunned. He didn't even try to deny it. Well, there's no point making excuses now, he said, and then, He confessed everything. Stephen admitted he had started a relationship with Sarah 6 months ago. He claimed she had made the first move, and he had given in. Now, he said his feelings were primarily for her. 6 months ago, Michael and Sarah had celebrated their 3rd wedding anniversary. To think that was when this betrayal started, it left me trembling with shock. Stephen continued without hesitation. That's why I want to marry Sarah. Mary, I want a divorce. His words hit me like a thunderbolt. I could barely process what he was saying. I objected angrily, nearly losing control, but Stephen wouldn't back down. In any case, I'm divorcing you, he said coldly. I can't stay with you anymore. The next day, Stephen never came home. His belongings were gone, and a completed divorce decree was left on the table. Later, I got a call from Michael. He was crying. Sarah had also left him, taking her belongings and leaving divorce papers behind. She had disappeared without a trace. Stephen and Sarah had eloped and vanished. That was how my marriage ended 10 years ago. After the divorce, Stephen and I sold the house we'd shared. I moved into a new home closer to my workplace. At first, I was overwhelmed with sadness and loneliness, but as time went on and I threw myself into work, my emotional wounds slowly began to heal. Teaching had always been a rewarding job for me, and I found peace in devoting myself to it. Over time, I grew close to my students and colleagues, who brought joy and purpose back into my life. I worked part-time even after reaching retirement age, and it kept me active and fulfilled. Stephen and Sarah became distant memories. I thought about them less and less as the years went by. My income wasn't as high as before, but it was enough to support me. Michael also found healing. After the shock of his father and wife's betrayal, he poured himself into his work with passion. Knowing he was doing well brought me relief. Then, one day, the peace I'd built for myself was shattered by a phone call. "Hello?" I answered. "Mary, it's Stephen," came the voice on the other end. It was the first time in 10 years I had heard from my ex-husband. Hearing Stephen's voice after 10 years made me want to scream. I couldn't hold back my emotions. "What do you want now?" I snapped. "You're not here to talk about the good old days, are you?" My voice was sharper than I intended, but it was understandable. I hadn't spoken to him since he walked out on me. Stephen, trying to stay calm, replied casually, Hey, why are you so upset? You're the one who agreed to the divorce. Why are you acting like this?" I couldn't hold back. "You're the one who ruined everything. I don't consider you my husband, and I don't even want to hear your voice." Stephen ignored my outburst and got straight to the point. "Look, you're living in your parents' house, right? I need you to leave. Sarah and I are moving in." His words hit me like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe his audacity. My anger boiled over. "Why are you saying this to me?" I shouted. Completely oblivious to how upset I was, Stephen kept talking. "Sarah's having a baby," he said, "but raising a child is a lot more expensive than we thought. Things have gotten really hard for us." He explained that their relationship had been passionate despite their 30-year age difference, but when Sarah got pregnant last year, everything changed. Both Stephen and Sarah quit their jobs to focus on their new start, but when the money ran out, they struggled to find decent work. They ended up working part-time to scrape by, living paycheck to paycheck. Now, with Sarah unable to work after giving birth, their finances had completely fallen apart. "I tried to ask Michael for help," Stephen continued, "but he refused to see me. I even thought about asking my parents, but they've disowned me too. They're all so stubborn." He laughed, as if it were some kind of joke. Hearing this, I remembered his family, a strict father, a strong-willed mother, and a serious younger brother. I had met them years ago, and I never imagined they'd tolerate such betrayal. How could Stephen abandon all those relationships and expect help now? "So, you're saying you want me to leave my house for you too?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. "Yes," Stephen replied bluntly. "Sarah and our baby are more important than you. You're just a single woman with nothing going for her except being a teacher." That cruel remark pushed me over the edge. "Get the hell out of here," I shouted, barely able to contain my anger. Had I been too generous in my memories of him? Over the years, I must have softened the truth, because I never expected Stephen to be this awful. I took a deep breath and said in a cold, low voice, "If you're talking about my parents' house, it's gone. It's not yours, and it never will be." When Stephen demanded the family home, I told him the truth. My father passed away 3 years ago, and my mother last year. The house was too big for me to live in alone, so I sold it. I don't have it anymore, Stephen. Stephen was stunned. "Huh? What do you mean? Where do you live now?" I'm not telling you where I live, I said firmly, and even if I did, I wouldn't let you in. Don't ever come here. Stephen lost his temper. What about my inheritance? When your parents died, the family home and the money should have gone to me, right? His words made me furious. How could he talk about my parents' deaths so coldly, only thinking about money? Stephen must have been planning to take not just my savings, but also my parents' inheritance. But he didn't know the truth. My parents, outraged by Stephen and Sarah's betrayal 10 years ago, had disinherited him entirely. When Michael and I told my parents what Stephen and Sarah had done, they were devastated. They had treated Stephen like their own son and trusted him completely. His betrayal hurt them deeply. Before their deaths, my parents made their wills very clear. They left everything to me, including the family home, to ensure people like Stephen and Sarah wouldn't get anything. My father passed away 7 years after the betrayal, and my mother just last year. Although it was hard to let go of the house filled with memories of my parents, it was too big for me to live in alone. Following their wishes, I sold it, knowing they would have preferred it to go to someone worthy rather than Stephen and Sarah. When I told Stephen this, he exploded. Don't play dumb with me, you can't just take everything like that. I kept my composure. I inherited the property legally. Stephen, my parents wouldn't have forgiven me if I let you have it after everything you did. Stephen had done nothing but wander aimlessly with Sarah. He had no right to interfere in my life now. After he realized he couldn't manipulate me, he hung up the phone in frustration. I stared at the phone, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. How could Stephen, someone I had spent years of my life with, be so selfish and childish? He abandoned everyone who had cared for him, then came back expecting help. Just as I was processing my frustration, my phone rang again. It was Sarah. I didn't even know your parents were dead, she snapped. How could you be so heartless and not tell me? They were my in-laws. Her words didn't touch me. If Sarah truly cared about my parents, she would have offered condolences or asked to visit their graves. Instead, her second sentence revealed her true motives. She was only interested in inheritance and money. This only confirmed what I already knew. Neither Stephen nor Sarah deserved to sit in front of my parents' altar. I cut her off mid-sentence with a few sharp words and hung up the phone. Later, Michael called me. Mom, did Dad and Sarah come over? No, I told him, but they called asking about my parents' house and inheritance. On the other end of the line, I heard Michael sigh heavily. Michael called me again. Mom, I thought they might contact you since they came to my place the other day. Michael, are you all right? Did they do anything to you? I asked, worried. I'm fine, Mom. They just banged on my door and made a big scene, but when I said I'd call the police, they ran off. But I have an idea. Michael explained his plan, and I decided it was time to put an end to the cycle of problems caused by Stephen and Sarah, not just for me, but to protect my son, who was starting fresh. A few days later, Stephen called, sounding upset. Hey, Mary, did you do this? You're awfully quiet now, huh? What are you talking about? I replied calmly. Don't play dumb. They're coming to our house right now. Stephen explained that 7 women had shown up at the apartment he shared with Sarah. These women were Stephen's other affairs. Yes, he had been cheating on Sarah with 7 different women. Sarah had no idea about Stephen's infidelities, and when the women began shouting and fighting, Stephen became furious and lashed out at Sarah. Meanwhile, Sarah packed her belongings, and a massive argument erupted. I knew it was you, Stephen yelled. How did you even find out about this? Who knows? I said calmly, but you left me 10 years ago. Stephen, remember that. Stephen, in a rage, hurled curses at me over the phone. I wasn't bothered. Ignoring his tantrum, I said my final words. Goodbye, Stephen. Don't ever show your face to me or our son again. Then I hung up. The chaos Stephen described was all part of Michael's plan. After Stephen and Sarah had banged on Michael's door, he hired a private detective to investigate them. The detective discovered Stephen's 7 mistresses, and that 3 of them were married. Michael shared the information with me, along with Stephen and Sarah's address. Together, we let the 7 women know where to find them, sending all of them to the apartment at once. The scene became so chaotic that the police were called to break it up. Afterward, Sarah broke up with Stephen for good. Stephen was also sued by 3 of the married women's husbands for alimony, amounts that totaled over 6 figures. Stephen lost Sarah, his money, and his home. Now, he's homeless and was last seen by a former coworker at a soup kitchen. Sarah didn't fare much better. Like Stephen, she was ordered to pay alimony in the same 6-figure range. to cover her expenses. She borrowed money from a shady loan company. Shortly after, men in black suits came for her, and she was taken away. No one knows what happened to her. With this, I closed the chapter on Stephen and Sarah, finally returning to a peaceful life. I remain single, but I'm content. My teaching job and the joy of working with students bring me all the happiness I need. Michael has also moved on. He's now dating a wonderful woman with a child, and they're planning a future together. I truly hope he finds the happiness he deserves.
The lipstick stain on Harrison's collar was unmistakable. I stared at it, my heart pounding, as he stumbled through the front door, reeking of whiskey and cheap perfume. "Lydia, darling, you're still up?" Harrison slurred, his once charming smile now a crooked, guilty grin. I forced a smile, years of corporate negotiations coming in handy. "Just finishing some work, dear." "Long night?" He nodded, fumbling with his tie. "Client dinner. You know how it is." I did know. I'd been the one attending those dinners for the past year, while Harrison wallowed in self-pity after losing his job. But this was different. "Let me help you with that," I said, approaching him. As I reached for his tie, the scent of another woman's perfume assaulted my senses. I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to confront him then and there. "You're too good to me, Lydia," Harrison mumbled, his eyes heavy with alcohol and shame. I helped him to bed, my mind racing. Once he was snoring, I slipped back to the living room and poured myself a generous glass of wine. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, Jane. "Everything okay, sweetie? You seemed off during our call earlier." I hesitated, then typed back, "Can we meet for lunch tomorrow? I need your advice." The next day, I met Mom at our favorite bistro. Her eyes widened as I recounted the previous night's events. "Oh, Lydia," she sighed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I'm not sure yet. Part of me wants to confront him, but you're worried about pushing him further away," Mom finished, nodding knowingly. She'd been through this herself with my father years ago. "Exactly," I said, stirring my untouched salad. "I've been trying so hard to help him through this depression, but now I wonder if I've just been enabling him." Mom's eyes flashed with a mix of sympathy and determination. "Honey, you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Harrison needs to take responsibility for his own happiness." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was Harrison. "Where are you? We need to talk." I showed Mom the text, my stomach churning. "I guess it's time to face the music." She squeezed my hand again. "Remember, you're strong, Lydia. Whatever happens, you'll get through this." I nodded, gathering my courage as I stood to leave. "Thanks, Mom. I'll call you later." The drive home felt both endless and far too short. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted Harrison pacing on the front porch. He looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Lydia," he called as I approached. "I need to talk to you about something important." My heart raced. Was he going to confess? Apologize? I steeled myself for whatever was coming. "What is it, Harrison?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I've been thinking a lot about our future, about what we both need to be happy." I held my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I think," he hesitated, then plunged ahead. "I think you should quit your job." For a moment, I was sure I'd misheard him. "Excuse me?" Harrison nodded, warming to his topic. "Your career has always come first, Lydia. Maybe if you focused more on our marriage, on supporting me." I stared at him, incredulous. Here I was, worried about confronting him about his infidelity, and he had the audacity to suggest I give up my career? "Harrison," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "I think we need to have a very different conversation." His brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. The image of that lipstick stain seared into my mind. "Why don't we start with where you really were last night?" Harrison's face paled at my question, his eyes darting away from mine. "What are you talking about, Lydia? I told you I was at a client dinner." I crossed my arms, my patience wearing thin. "A client dinner that left lipstick on your collar? Come on, Harrison. I deserve the truth." He slumped against the porch railing, the fight draining out of him. I'm sorry, Lydia. It was a mistake. I've been feeling so lost, so worthless." "So you decided to cheat on me?" I spat, my anger finally boiling over. "That's your solution?" Harrison reached for me, but I stepped back. Please, Lydia, let's talk about this. We can work it out. That's why I think you should quit your job. We need to focus on us. I laughed bitterly. You want me to give up my career because you can't keep it in your pants? Unbelievable. It's not like that, he protested. I just think if we both focused on our marriage. Our marriage? I interrupted. You mean the one you just betrayed? The one you're asking me to sacrifice everything for while you contribute nothing? Harrison's face hardened. Nothing? I've been trying, Lydia, but it's hard to feel like a man when my wife is the one bringing home the bacon. I stared at him, incredulous. So this is about your ego, your fragile masculinity? It's about balance, he shouted, his composure cracking. It's about feeling like I matter in this relationship. You matter, Harrison, I said, my voice softening despite myself, but asking me to give up my career isn't the answer. I've supported you through this rough patch, but I can't be the only one making sacrifices. He ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. Then what do you want from me, Lydia? What am I supposed to do? For starters, you could try being honest, I replied. Who is she, Harrison? He flinched, avoiding my gaze. It doesn't matter. It was a one-time thing, I swear. But something in his voice made me doubt that. I felt a chill run down my spine as a terrible thought occurred to me. It's not Margaret, is it? Harrison's sharp intake of breath was all the confirmation I needed. Margaret, my college roommate, the woman who'd been my bridesmaid. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. How long? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Harrison's shoulders sagged. A few months. Lydia, I'm so sorry. It just happened, and then I couldn't stop. Couldn't stop? I echoed, my voice rising. You couldn't stop betraying me with one of my oldest friends? I was weak, he pleaded. I felt like a failure, and Margaret, she made me feel like a man again. I laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. And I suppose that's why you want me to quit my job? So you can feel like a big, strong man again? Harrison's face flushed with anger. You don't understand. You've always had it easy, Lydia. Your career, your success. You don't know what it's like to struggle. Easy? I repeated, my voice dangerously low. You think my life has been easy, Thurif? I've worked my ass off for everything I have, and I've spent the last year trying to support you to help you find your footing again. This is how you repay me? I'm sorry, Harrison said, his voice breaking. Please, Lydia, give me another chance. We can fix this. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw a stranger. The man I'd married, the one I'd loved and supported, was gone. In his place was someone selfish, someone who'd rather tear me down than build himself up. No, Harrison, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I don't think we can fix this, and I'm done trying. As I turned to walk away, I heard him call after me, desperation in his voice. But I didn't look back. I had some calls to make, starting with a divorce lawyer. I sat in my car outside Margaret's apartment, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The past week had been a blur of anger, tears, and sleepless nights. Now I was here, ready to confront the woman who had betrayed me just as much as Harrison had. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and marched up to her door. I knocked sharply, my heart pounding in my chest. The door swung open, and there she was. Margaret's eyes widened in shock. Lydia? What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, pushing past her into the apartment. Margaret stammered. I don't understand. What's going on? I whirled to face her, my voice cold. Drop the act, Margaret. I know about you and Harrison. The color drained from her face. Lydia, I can explain. Save it, I snapped. I trusted you. You were my friend, and you stabbed me in the back. Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were just talking one day, and then you decided to sleep with my husband? I finished for her, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Margaret sank onto her couch, her head in her hands. I'm so sorry, Lydia. I never meant to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Well, you did a bang-up job of it anyway. As I paced her living room, my eye caught something on her coffee table. It was a receipt for a weekend getaway, dated for next month. My blood boiled. Planning a little vacation with my husband? I asked, snatching up the paper. Margaret's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. No, it's not. I mean, we were just... Just what? I demanded. Planning to run off together while I was none the wiser? She stood, reaching for me. Lydia, please. It's not like that. We care about you. We just... Care about me? I interrupted, my voice rising. Is that why you've been sneaking around behind my back? Is that why Harrison asked me to quit my job so he could feel like a man again? Margaret's face paled. He what? I nodded grimly. Oh yes, he thinks if I give up my career, it'll fix everything. I guess he didn't share that little plan with you, did he? She sank back onto the couch, looking shell-shocked. I had no idea. Lydia, I swear I never wanted to come between you two. But you did, I said, my anger giving way to a deep, aching sadness. You both did. As I turned to leave, Margaret called out, Wait, what are you going to do? I paused at the door, not looking back. I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. I'm going to take care of myself. Back in my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd been avoiding. Dad, it's Lydia. I need your help. My father's voice was warm and concerned. Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong? I took a deep breath. I'm leaving Harrison. I need a good divorce lawyer. There was a moment of silence. Then, I'll make some calls. Are you okay? No, I admitted, feeling tears prick at my eyes. But I will be. As I drove home, my mind raced with plans. I'd need evidence of Harrison's infidelity, financial records, anything that could help my case. Part of me felt guilty for plotting against the man I'd once loved, but another part, a stronger part, knew this was necessary. I pulled into our driveway, steeling myself for what was to come. Harrison's car was there, and I could see him moving around in the living room. For a moment, I considered confronting him, laying all my cards on the table, but no, not yet. I needed to be smart about this. I needed to protect myself. As I walked into the house, Harrison looked up, his face a mixture of hope and apprehension. Lydia, where have you been? Can we talk? I forced a smile, hating how easy it was to slip into this facade. Of course, dear. Let me just freshen up first. I headed airs, my heart pounding. The game was on and I intended to win. I'd been gathering evidence for weeks, carefully documenting Harrison's indiscretions and financial missteps. Every late-night phone call, every suspicious credit card charge, it was all there, neatly organized in a folder hidden in my office. I was ready to make my move, to confront Harrison and end this charade of a marriage once and for all. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Lydia, we need to talk, Harrison said one evening, his voice uncharacteristically serious. It's about your father. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. What about my father? Harrison took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair, a nervous habit I once found endearing. I spoke with Charles today. I think I've found a way for us to get back on our feet. Alarm bells rang in my head. What are you talking about, Harrison? Your father's retirement fund, he said, his eyes gleaming with an intensity I hadn't seen in months. If we could just borrow a portion of it. Borrow? I interrupted, my voice sharp. You want to take money from my father's retirement? Harrison held up his hands placatingly. Not take, Lydia. Invest. I've got a lead on a business opportunity that could turn everything around for us. But we need capital to get started. I stared at him, barely recognizing the man before me. And you think the solution is to gamble with my father's hard-earned money? It's not gambling, Harrison insisted, his voice rising. This is a sure thing, Lydia. We could finally get back to where we were before everything went wrong. I laughed bitterly. Before you lost your job? Before you started sleeping with my best friend? Harrison flinched as if I'd slapped him. I thought we were moving past that. I thought you'd forgiven me. Forgiven you? I echoed, incredulous. Harrison, I've been trying to understand, to support you. But this is too much. He reached for me, his eyes pleading. Lydia, please, this could be our chance to start over, to be happy again. I stepped back, shaking my head. Happy? You think taking advantage of my father will make us happy? It's not taking advantage, Harrison argued. Charles would want to help us. He's always liked me. Liked you enough to hand over his retirement savings? I shot back. I don't think so. Harrison's face hardened. You don't know that. Maybe if you weren't so focused on your precious career, you'd see how important this is for our future. His words hit me like a physical blow. In that moment, I saw Harrison for who he truly was, a man so consumed by his own insecurities and greed that he'd sacrifice anything, anyone, to feel powerful again. Our future? I said quietly. Harrison, I don't think we have a future. His eyes widened in panic. What are you saying? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I knew I had to do. I'm saying that I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's so clearly not. Lydia, please, Harrison begged, reaching for me again. We can work this out. We can— No, I interrupted, my voice firm. We can't. And I won't let you drag my father into this mess. I turned away, my mind racing. I needed to warn my father, to protect him from Harrison's desperate schemes, and I needed to finalize my own plans that no longer included a future with the man I'd once loved. As I walked out of the room, leaving Harrison calling after me, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The life I'd known was crumbling around me, but from the ashes I could see a new path forming, one that led to independence, self-respect, and maybe, just maybe, a chance at true happiness. I pulled out my phone, my fingers shaking slightly as I dialed. Dad, it's Lydia. We need to talk. It's important. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I walked into the living room. Harrison was there, slouched on the couch, flipping through channels with a vacant expression. He looked up as I entered, his eyes widening at the sight of the envelope. Lydia? What's that? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Harrison, we need to talk. He sat up straighter, a flicker of concern crossing his face. Is everything okay? No, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. It's not, and it hasn't been for a long time. I placed the envelope on the coffee table between us. Harrison stared at it, then back at me, confusion evident in his eyes. What is this? He asked, reaching for it. Divorce papers, I said, watching as the color drained from his face. Harrison's hand froze midair. What? Lydia, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, I replied, sitting down across from him. I've given this a lot of thought, Harrison. Our marriage is over. He shook his head vehemently. No, we can work this out. I know I've made mistakes, but— Mistakes, I interrupted, feeling my carefully controlled emotions start to slip. You call cheating on me with my best friend a mistake? Trying to con my father out of his retirement savings a mistake? Harrison flinched at my words. I was desperate, Lydia. I didn't know what else to do. You could have been honest with me, I said, my voice cracking slightly. You could have worked on yourself instead of trying to tear me down. He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. I can change, Lydia. Give me another chance, please. For a moment, I felt my resolve waver, but then I remembered the lipstick on his collar, the secret phone calls, the way he'd tried to manipulate my father. My heart hardened. It's too late for that, Harrison, I said, pushing the envelope towards him. I want you to look these over and sign them. His face contorted with anger. Just like that? You're throwing away our marriage without even trying to fix it? I laughed bitterly. I've been trying to fix it for months, Harrison, but I can't do it alone, and I won't sacrifice myself for someone who doesn't respect me. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Is that what this is about? Your career? Your independence? It's about self-respect, I shot back. It's about not letting you or anyone else make me feel small. He stood up abruptly, pacing the room. You'll regret this, Lydia. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was not doing this sooner, I replied, standing my ground. Harrison whirled to face me, his expression dark. Fine, you want a divorce? You'll get one but don't think I'll make it easy for you. I felt a chill run down my spine at his words, but I refused to show fear. I'm prepared for that, Harrison. In fact, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small recorder, pressing play. Harrison's voice filled the room, detailing his affair with Margaret and his plans to use my father's money. His face paled as he listened. You recorded me? I nodded, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I did, and I have a lot more evidence. So if you're thinking of fighting dirty, remember that I'm ready for it. Harrison slumped back onto the couch, defeat written across his features. What do you want from me, Lydia? I want you to sign the papers, I said, pushing them towards him again. And I want alimony, not just from you but from Margaret, too. His head snapped up. Margaret, you can't be serious. Oh, I am, I replied, a grim smile on my face. She helped destroy our marriage. It's only fair she helps pay for the consequences. Harrison stared at me for a long moment, then slowly reached for the papers. As he began to read through them, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This wasn't the end I had hoped for when we got married, but it was the beginning of something new. A life where I put myself first. And as I watched Harrison sign away our future together, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them head on. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat, waiting for the judge to return with her decision. Months of legal battles, sleepless nights, and emotional turmoil had led to this moment. I glanced over at Harrison, his once familiar face now a mask of bitterness and resentment. He caught my eye and sneered, mouthing something I couldn't quite make out. My lawyer, Sarah, squeezed my arm reassuringly. "We've got this, Lydia. The evidence is overwhelming." I nodded, trying to believe her words. But doubt gnawed at me. Harrison had fought dirty, throwing every accusation he could think of at me. He'd even tried to paint me as an unfit wife, claiming my career obsession had driven him to infidelity. The nerve of that man never ceased to amaze me. The bailiff's voice cut through my thoughts. "All rise." As the judge took her seat, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment that would define my future. In the matter of Lydia Thompson versus Harrison Thompson, the judge began, her voice steady and impartial. "I have reviewed all the evidence presented by both parties." I held my breath, feeling the weight of her next words. "It is the decision of this court to grant the divorce petition filed by Mrs. Thompson." A wave of relief washed over me, but I knew it wasn't over yet. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "given the evidence of Mr. Hittilinep Thompson's infidelity and financial misconduct, the court awards Mrs. Thompson alimony in the amount of—" As she named the figure, I heard Harrison's sharp intake of breath. It was more than we'd expected, more than he could easily afford. But the judge wasn't finished. Additionally, the court finds merit in Mrs. Thompson's claim against Margaret Winters for alienation of affection. Miss Winters is hereby ordered to pay damages in the amount of— This time, it was my turn to gasp. The amount was substantial, a clear message that actions have consequences. As the judge concluded the proceedings, I turned to Sarah, my eyes wide with disbelief. "Did that just happen?" she grinned, squeezing my hand. "It did. Congratulations, Lydia. It's over." But as we stood to leave, Harrison's voice cut through the courtroom chatter. "This isn't over, Lydia. You'll regret this, I swear." I turned to face him, surprised by the calmness in my voice. "No, Harrison, you're the one who'll regret your choices. I'm just moving on with my life." As we exited the courthouse, a flurry of reporters descended upon us. Questions flew from all directions, microphones thrust in my face. "Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you have any comment on the alimony award? What would you say to other women in similar situations?" I hesitated, overwhelmed by the attention. But then I remembered all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, all the times I'd doubted my worth because of Harrison's actions. I straightened my shoulders and faced the cameras. "I feel vindicated," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. "This verdict isn't just about money. It's about justice. It's about standing up for yourself when someone tries to tear you down." The reporters hung on every word, scribbling furiously in their notepads. "To any woman out there facing betrayal or manipulation," I continued, "I want you to know that you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone dim your light or make you feel small. You deserve better." As the words left my mouth, I realized I wasn't just speaking to the cameras. I was speaking to myself, to the woman I'd been at the start of this ordeal. Later that evening, as I sat in my quiet apartment, the reality of the day's events began to sink in. I was divorced. I was free. But as I looked around at the remnants of my married life, I felt a strange emptiness. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Proud of you, sweetheart. This is just the beginning." I smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. Yes, it was the beginning. But of what, I wasn't quite sure. As I drifted off to sleep, one thought echoed in my mind. Whatever comes next, I'm ready for it. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. Bleary-eyed, I fumbled for it, my heart racing when I saw Sarah's name on the screen. "Lydia, we have a problem." My lawyer's voice was tense. Harrison's filed a motion to reopen the case. I sat bolt upright, sleep forgotten. "What? On what grounds?" "He's claiming you deceived the court about your father's true wealth. Says you have access to funds you didn't disclose." My mind reeled. How could Harrison possibly know about— No, it couldn't be. "Lydia, are you there?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, I'm here. Sarah, this is bad. Really bad. Talk to me, Lydia. What's going on?" I I took a deep breath, weighing my options. The truth could jeopardize everything, but lying to my lawyer would be even worse. My father, he has an offshore account. It's not exactly legal. Harrison must have found out somehow. Sarah's sharp intake of breath told me everything I needed to know. Lydia, why didn't you tell me about this before? I didn't think it mattered. It's not my money, and I've never touched it. It matters now, Sarah said grimly. We need to meet. My office, 1 hour. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal meetings and sleepless nights. Harrison's lawyers were pushing hard, demanding a full financial audit. If they succeeded, it wouldn't just be my divorce settlement at stake. My father could face serious legal consequences. As I sat in the courthouse waiting room, I felt the walls closing in. My mother squeezed my hand reassuringly, but I could see the worry in her eyes. It'll be okay, sweetheart, she murmured. Your father's lawyer is the best in the business. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Just then the doors burst open, and Harrison strode in, flanked by his legal team. Our eyes met, and I was shocked by the malice I saw there. Enjoying your ill-gotten gains, Lydia? He sneered. Not for much longer. Before I could respond, Sarah appeared, ushering us into the courtroom. As we took our seats, I caught sight of my father, his face ashen. The judge called the session to order, and Harrison's lawyer launched into his argument. With each word, I felt my carefully constructed world crumbling around me. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Genova Thompson deliberately misled this court about her family's financial status. We believe she has access to substantial undisclosed funds, which should be considered in the divorce settlement. The judge turned to Sarah. Counselor, how do you respond to these allegations? Sarah stood, her voice steady. Your Honor, these claims are baseless. My client has been fully transparent about her finances. Mr. Thompson is simply attempting to retaliate against the court's previous ruling. As the arguments flew back and forth, I found myself zoning out, my mind racing. How had Harrison found out? Who could have told him? Suddenly, a commotion at the back of the courtroom snapped me back to reality. I turned to see Margaret being escorted in by a bailiff. Your Honor, Harrison's lawyer said smugly, we'd like to call a surprise witness. My heart sank as Margaret took the stand. She looked nervous, her eyes darting between Harrison and me. Miss Winters, Harrison's lawyer began, can you tell the court what you know about Charles Thompson's offshore accounts? Margaret hesitated, her gaze locking with mine. In that moment, I saw a flicker of remorse in her eyes. I can't do this, she said suddenly. I'm sorry, Harrison. I won't lie for you. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Harrison leapt to his feet, shouting accusations. His lawyer tried desperately to regain control of the situation. Amidst the uproar, the judge's gavel came down hard. Order! I will have order in this court. As silence fell, the judge fixed Harrison with a steely glare. Mr. Thompson, attempting to coerce false testimony is a serious offense. This court takes a very dim view of such actions. I held my breath, hardly daring to hope. Motion to reopen the case denied, the judge declared. Furthermore, Mr. Thompson, you will be held in contempt of court. Bailiff, take him into custody. As Harrison was led away, protesting loudly, I slumped in my seat, overwhelmed by relief and exhaustion. Sarah leaned over, a small smile on her face. It's over, Lydia. Really over this time. I nodded, tears pricking at my eyes. But as I watched Harrison disappear through the courtroom doors, I couldn't help but wonder. At what cost had this victory come? And where did I go from here? 6 months after the courtroom drama, I found myself in a chic new restaurant, celebrating my recent promotion. The air buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, a stark contrast to the tense silence that had dominated my life for so long. To new beginnings, my mother toasted, her eyes twinkling with pride. As I raised my glass, a familiar figure caught my eye. There, at a corner table, was Harrison. Our eyes met, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. He looked different. Gone was the bitter, angry man from the courtroom. This Harrison seemed humbler, more grounded. He was dressed in a waiter's uniform, efficiently clearing tables and chatting amiably with customers. Lydia, are you okay? My mother's voice snapped me back to reality. I nodded, unable to tear my eyes away from Harrison. I need a moment. Before I could second-guess myself, I was walking towards him. He saw me approaching and straightened up, a mix of emotions playing across his face. Lydia, he said, his voice softer than I remembered. I didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I replied, surprised by the calmness in my voice. You're working here? He nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. Started a few months ago. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. I'm trying to turn things around. I felt a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying lift from my shoulders. I'm glad to hear that, Harrison. Really. An awkward silence fell between us, years of hurt and betrayal hanging in the air. Finally, Harrison spoke. Lydia, I owe you an apology. For everything. I was so caught up in my own insecurities that I lost sight of what really mattered. I'm sorry for hurting you, for betraying your trust. You deserved better. His words hit me like a tidal wave, washing away the last remnants of anger and resentment I'd been holding on to. Thank you, Harrison. That means a lot. As we stood there, I realized something profound. The man I'd once loved, the man I'd fought so hard against, was no longer the center of my world. He was just a person, flawed and human, trying to find his way just like the rest of us. I should get back to my table, I said, gesturing towards my mother. Take care of yourself, Harrison. He nodded, a small smile on his face. You too, Lydia. And congratulations on the promotion. I saw it in the paper. You always were destined for great things. As I walked back to my table, I felt lighter than I had in years. My mother looked at me quizzically. Everything okay? I smiled, truly smiled, for what felt like the first time in forever. Yeah, Mom, everything's perfect. That night, as I stood on my balcony looking out over the city, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the pain, the fight for justice, it had all shaped me, made me stronger. I thought about Harrison, working to rebuild his life, about Margaret, who'd found the courage to tell the truth in the end, about my parents who'd stood by me through it all. And I thought about myself. The Lydia who'd started this journey would never have believed she could survive such betrayal, let alone thrive in its aftermath. But here I was, stronger and more self-assured than ever. As I gazed at the twinkling city lights, I made a decision. I didn't need a man to complete me. I didn't need to rush into another relationship to prove my worth. What I needed was to continue growing, learning, and loving myself. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. There would be challenges, of course, but I was ready for them. I'd weathered the storm of betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. With a contented sigh, I raised my glass to the night sky. To new beginnings, I whispered, echoing my mother's earlier toast, and to the journey ahead. As I turned to go back inside, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The chapter of my life with Harrison was finally, truly closed. But my story? It was just beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. The shrill ring of my phone pierced through the kitchen, startling me as I piped delicate rosettes onto Daniel's birthday cake. I fumbled for the device, smearing frosting across my cheek in the process. Hello? I answered, breathless. Clara, darling, it's Rhonda. My mother-in-law's saccharine voice oozed through the speaker. My stomach clenched. I'm calling about Daniel's birthday dinner tonight. I gripped the phone tighter. Oh, what about it? Well, I've decided to bring my famous pot roast. I know how much Daniel loves it. My jaw tightened. That's thoughtful, Rhonda, but I've already prepared everything. The menu is set. Oh, nonsense. Rhonda laughed, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. There's always room for improvement, dear. Besides, we both know your cooking could use a little assistance. I bit my tongue, tasting blood. Rhonda, I appreciate the offer, but it's settled then, she chirped. I'll see you at 6. Don't forget to set an extra place at the table. The line went dead before I could protest further. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking with frustration. How dare she? This was my home, my husband's birthday. And yet, once again, Rhonda was steamrolling over my carefully laid plans. I glanced at the clock. 4 hours until dinner. 4 hours to figure out how to salvage this evening without causing a scene. Daniel deserved a perfect birthday, not another tense family standoff. The front door opened and I heard Daniel's familiar footsteps. Honey, I'm home, he called out. I plastered on a smile as he entered the kitchen, determined not to let Rhonda's interference ruin our moment. Welcome home, birthday boy, I said, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. Daniel's eyes widened as he took in the mess of baking supplies strewn across the counter. Wow, you've been busy. Is that my cake? I nodded, gesturing proudly to the half-decorated confection. Chocolate fudge with vanilla buttercream, your favorite. He wrapped his arms around me, nuzzling my neck. "You're the best, Clara. I can't wait for tonight." I stiffened involuntarily, and Daniel pulled back, concern etching his features. "What's wrong?" I sighed, knowing I couldn't hide my distress from him. "Your mother called." Daniel's expression darkened. "What did she do now?" "She's bringing her pot roast to dinner. Uninvited, of course." He groaned, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Clara. I know how hard you've worked on this dinner." I shrugged, trying to downplay my disappointment. "It's fine. We'll make it work." Daniel's jaw clenched. "No, it's not fine. This is our home, and she can't just barge in and take over whenever she feels like it." I touched his arm, surprised by the intensity of his reaction. "Daniel, it's okay. Let's not let her ruin your birthday." He shook his head, a determined glint in his eye. "No, Clara. It's time we set some boundaries with my mother. I'll call her right now and tell her to leave the pot roast at home." As Daniel reached for his phone, a wave of anxiety washed over me. "Wait," I blurted out. Maybe we should just let her bring it, for the sake of peace?" Daniel's brow furrowed. "Clara, you can't keep letting her walk all over you, over us." I bit my lip, torn between my desire for a conflict-free evening and the need to stand up for myself. "I know, but..." The doorbell rang, cutting me off mid-sentence. Daniel and I exchanged puzzled glances. We weren't expecting anyone for hours. "I'll get it," Daniel said, striding towards the front door. I followed close behind, my heart racing. As Daniel swung the door open, I gasped. There stood Rhonda, pot roast in hand, a triumphant smile plastered across her face. "Surprise!" she trilled. "I thought I'd come early to help set up. After all, we can't have Daniel's birthday dinner be anything less than perfect, can we?" I felt the blood drain from my face as Rhonda swept past us into the house, leaving the scent of her overpowering perfume in her wake. As she disappeared into the kitchen, Daniel turned to me, his expression a mix of anger and resignation. "Happy birthday to me," he muttered. As Rhonda bustled around my kitchen, rearranging dishes and criticizing my decor, I retreated to the sanctuary of our bedroom. Daniel followed, closing the door behind us with a soft click. "I'm so sorry, Clara," he said, pulling me into a tight embrace. "This isn't how I wanted today to go." I buried my face in his chest, inhaling the familiar scent of his cologne. It transported me back to our first date, a picnic in the park where we'd talked for hours under a canopy of stars. Daniel had been so nervous, he'd spilled wine all over his shirt. I'd fallen in love with his laughter that night. "Remember our honeymoon?" I asked, looking up at him. Daniel's eyes crinkled as he smiled. "How could I forget? That rickety old cabin in the mountains." "With the leaky roof," I added, chuckling. "And the family of raccoons living under the porch," Daniel finished. We both burst into laughter, the tension of the past hour momentarily forgotten. This was why I loved him. His ability to find joy in the simplest moments, to make me feel safe and cherished even when the world was chaos. A crash from the kitchen jolted us back to reality. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I should go see what she's broken now." I caught his arm as he turned to leave. "Wait, I have something for you." I reached into the dresser drawer and pulled out a small wrapped package. Daniel's eyes lit up. "Clara, you didn't have to." "Open it," I urged. He tore off the paper, revealing a leather-bound journal. "It's beautiful," he murmured, flipping through the blank pages. "I thought you could use it for your poetry," I explained. "You haven't written in so long, and I know how much you love it." Daniel's expression softened. "You remembered." "Of course I did. I remember everything about you, Daniel." He cupped my face in his hands, kissing me deeply. For a moment, I forgot about Rhonda, about the ruined dinner plans, about everything except the feel of Daniel's lips on mine. Another crash, louder this time, shattered our bubble of peace. "I'd better go," Daniel said reluctantly. I nodded, squeezing his hand. "I'll be right behind you." As Daniel left to deal with his mother, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. I wouldn't let Rhonda ruin this day, not when I'd worked so hard to make it special for Daniel. I emerged from the bedroom to find Rhonda standing in the hallway, arms crossed. "There you are," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I was beginning to think you'd abandoned your hosting duties entirely." I forced a smile. "Just giving Daniel his birthday gift, Rhonda," she sniffed. "Well, I hope it was better than that sad excuse for a cake I saw in the kitchen. Really, Clara, store-bought would have been kinder." My cheeks burned with anger and embarrassment. I'd spent hours on that cake, perfecting every detail. Before I could respond, Daniel appeared behind his mother. "Mom," he said, his voice tight with barely contained fury. "That's enough." Rhonda turned, her expression morphing into one of wounded innocence. "Daniel, darling, I was just offering some constructive criticism. You know I only want the best for you." "The best for me would be if you stopped attacking my wife," Daniel snapped. Rhonda gasped, clutching her pearls. "Daniel, how could you say such a thing? After everything I've done for you." I watched the confrontation unfold, my heart racing. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid. As much as I appreciated Daniel standing up for me, I feared this would only make things worse. "Maybe we should all take a moment to calm down," I suggested, stepping between them. Rhonda's eyes narrowed. "Oh, I'm perfectly calm, dear. It's not my fault if you can't handle a little honest feedback." Daniel opened his mouth to retort, but I cut him off. "Why don't we move this conversation to the living room? I'm sure Fred will be here soon, and we can all sit down and enjoy a nice family dinner." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. I silently thanked whatever higher power had decided to intervene. "That must be Dad," Daniel said, moving towards the door. But when he opened it, it wasn't Fred standing on our porch. Instead, a smartly dressed woman with a briefcase stood before us, her expression grave. "Daniel Thompson?" she asked. Daniel nodded, confused. "I'm Sarah Lawson from Evergreen Bank. I'm here about your father's accounts. I'm afraid there's been some irregularities." The tension in the room was palpable as Sarah Lawson from Evergreen Bank explained the situation. Daniel's face grew increasingly pale, while Rhonda fidgeted nervously with her pearl necklace. I stood there, stunned, trying to process the implications of what we were hearing. "I'm sorry, but could you please explain this again?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded sympathetically. "Of course, we've detected some unusual activity on Mr. Frederick Thompson's accounts. Large sums of money have been withdrawn over the past few months, far exceeding normal spending patterns." Daniel's jaw clenched. "And you're sure it's not just a mistake?" "I'm afraid not, Mr. Thompson. The transactions appear to be authorized, but given the amounts involved, we felt it necessary to investigate further." Just then, the front door opened, and Fred walked in, his usual cheerful demeanor instantly evaporating as he took in the scene before him. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes darting between us and the bank representative. Daniel turned to his father, his voice strained. "Dad, this is Sarah from Evergreen Bank. She says there's been some unusual activity on your accounts." Fred's brow furrowed in confusion. "What kind of unusual activity?" As Sarah began to explain again, I noticed Rhonda inching towards the kitchen, her face a mask of barely concealed panic. Something about her behavior set off alarm bells in my head. "Rhonda," I called out, causing her to freeze mid-step. "Where are you going?" All eyes turned to my mother-in-law, who plastered on an unconvincing smile. "Oh, I just thought I'd check on the pot roast. We don't want it to overcook, do we?" Fred's expression hardened. "Rhonda, what have you done?" The room fell silent as Rhonda's facade crumbled. She collapsed into a nearby chair, burying her face in her hands. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Daniel took a step towards his mother, his voice low and dangerous. "What exactly are you sorry for, Mom?" Rhonda looked up, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. I may have borrowed some money from your father's accounts, just to tide us over, you understand. Things have been tight lately, with all the renovations and the new car." Fred's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Borrowed? Rhonda, how much did you take?" Sarah cleared her throat, drawing our attention back to her. "According to our records, the total amount withdrawn over the past 6 months is just over $200,000. The room erupted into chaos. Fred bellowed in disbelief. Daniel started pacing and muttering under his breath, and Rhonda's sobs grew louder. I stood there, frozen, unable to comprehend how things had spiraled so far out of control. "I'll pay it back," Rhonda wailed. "I promise. I just need a little more time." Fred's laugh was bitter and hollow. "With what money, Rhonda? You haven't worked a day in your life. Where exactly do you think this magical repayment is going to come from?" As the argument escalated, I slipped out of the room, desperately needing a moment to collect my thoughts. I found myself in the kitchen, staring at the half-finished birthday cake I'd worked so hard on. It seemed like a lifetime ago that my biggest worry had been Rhonda's interference with dinner plans. A gentle hand on my shoulder made me jump. I turned to find Fred standing there, looking older and more defeated than I'd ever seen him. "I'm so sorry, Clara," he said softly. "I had no idea things had gotten this bad." I reached out and squeezed his hand. "It's not your fault, Fred. You couldn't have known," he sighed heavily. "I should have seen the signs. Rhonda's always been a spendthrift, but this is something else entirely." We stood in silence for a moment, the muffled sounds of Daniel and Rhonda's continued argument drifting in from the living room. "What are you going to do?" I asked finally. Fred's eyes hardened with resolve. "Whatever it takes to fix this mess. But first, I need you to tell me everything you know about Rhonda's spending habits, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem." As I began to speak, detailing years of observations and suspicions I'd kept to myself, I realized that this birthday dinner had become the catalyst for a family reckoning that was long overdue. And somehow, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a mug of cold coffee as Daniel paced back and forth. The events of the past few hours had left us both reeling, and the weight of what we'd discovered pressed down on us like a physical force. "I can't believe she did this," Daniel muttered, running his hands through his hair for the 100th time. "How could she steal from her own husband?" I sighed, pushing the mug away. "I don't know, Daniel, but we need to figure out what to do next." He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his expression a mix of anger and determination. "We confront her. Tonight. At dinner." My stomach churned at the thought. "Are you sure that's wise? Maybe we should wait. Talk to your father first." "No," Daniel cut me off. "We've waited long enough. Mom needs to face the consequences of her actions." Just then, Fred walked in, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He'd spent the last hour on the phone with the bank, trying to get more details about the unauthorized withdrawals. "Any news?" I asked, dreading the answer. Fred shook his head. "It's worse than we thought. Rhonda didn't just take from my retirement savings. She's opened credit cards in my name, taken out loans. We're looking at close to $500,000 in debt." The room fell silent as the magnitude of Rhonda's deception sank in. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, thinking about the years of careful saving that had been wiped out in a matter of months. Daniel slammed his fist on the counter, making us both jump. "That's it. I'm calling the police." "Wait," Fred said, his voice surprisingly calm. "Let's think this through. If we involve the authorities, it could ruin Rhonda's life. Is that really what we want?" I stared at Fred in disbelief. "But she's already ruined your life, Fred. Your retirement, your savings. It's all gone." He sighed heavily. "I know, but she's still my wife, the mother of my child. There has to be another way." As Fred and Daniel argued about the best course of action, I found myself drifting to the window. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across our once peaceful neighborhood. How had we gotten here? How had Rhonda's pettiness and greed managed to destroy so much? Suddenly, a flash of movement caught my eye. A sleek, unfamiliar car was pulling into our driveway. My heart sank as I recognized the driver. "She's here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel and Fred fell silent, turning to look at me. "Who's here?" Daniel asked. "Rhonda." We watched in stunned silence as Rhonda emerged from the car, dressed in an expensive new outfit, her arms laden with shopping bags. She sauntered up the driveway as if she didn't have a care in the world. Something inside me snapped. All the years of enduring her criticism, her manipulation, her thinly veiled insults, it all came rushing to the surface. "I have an idea," I said, turning to face Daniel and Fred. "We go through with the dinner as planned." But instead of confronting her outright, we let her dig her own grave. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. "What do you mean?" "We play along, let her think everything's normal. But we ask questions, innocent ones, about her new clothes, her recent purchases. We give her enough rope to hang herself." Fred nodded slowly, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. "And then?" "And then," I said, my voice hard with resolve, "when she's good and comfortable, when she thinks she's gotten away with everything, we spring the trap." Daniel looked at me with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Clara, I had no idea you could be so devious." I managed a grim smile. "Your mother's taught me a thing or two over the years. It's time I put those lessons to good use." As the doorbell rang, announcing Rhonda's arrival, we exchanged determined looks. The stage was set, the players in position. It was time to serve up a dish Rhonda wouldn't soon forget, a heaping plate of long-overdue justice. "Let the games begin," I murmured, smoothing my dress and plastering on my best fake smile as I went to answer the door. I opened the door, my heart pounding as I faced Rhonda. She breezed past me, her designer perfume leaving a cloying trail in her wake. "Clara, darling," she trilled, air-kissing my cheek. "I hope you don't mind. I brought a little something extra for dinner." I forced a smile, eyeing the expensive-looking bottle of wine in her hand. "How thoughtful," I managed, wondering how many of Fred's hard-earned dollars had paid for it. As we entered the dining room, I caught Daniel's eye. He gave me a subtle nod, reminding me of our plan. Fred sat at the head of the table, his face a carefully composed mask. "Well, doesn't this look quaint?" Rhonda remarked, surveying the table I'd spent hours preparing. Her tone made it clear that quaint was not a compliment. I bit my tongue, reminding myself to play along. "Thank you for noticing, Rhonda. I do try my best." We took our seats, an uncomfortable silence settling over the table. I served the food, my hands shaking slightly as I placed Rhonda's plate in front of her. My, Rhonda said, fingering her new diamond necklace. "Isn't this a lovely little spread? Although, Clara dear, you really should invest in some proper china. These everyday plates are so pedestrian." I saw Daniel's jaw clench, but he remained silent. It was Fred who spoke up. "I think Clara's done a wonderful job," he said, his voice unnaturally cheerful. "Don't you agree, Rhonda? After all, it's not about the fancy plates, but the love that goes into the meal." Rhonda's laugh was brittle. "Oh, Fred, you're such a sentimentalist, but I suppose that's why I love you." As we ate, I carefully steered the conversation towards Rhonda's recent purchases. "That's a beautiful necklace, Rhonda. Is it new?" She preened, touching the glittering stones. "Oh, this old thing? Just a little treat I picked up last week. A woman deserves to spoil herself now and then, don't you think?" "Absolutely," I agreed, my voice sickly sweet. "And those shopping bags I saw you bring in, more little treats?" Rhonda's eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile remained fixed. "Just a few necessities. You know how it is." Daniel leaned forward, his expression innocent. "Speaking of necessities, Mom, I've been meaning to ask, how's that charity work you were so passionate about last year, the one for underprivileged children?" I watched as a flicker of panic crossed Rhonda's face before she composed herself. "Oh, that. Well, you know how these things go. I've been so busy lately, I haven't had much time for volunteer work." Fred nodded sympathetically. "It's a shame. I remember you were so excited about it. Didn't you even make a sizable donation?" Rhonda's laugh was too loud, too forced. "Did I? I can't quite recall. You know how forgetful I can be about these things." The tension in the room was palpable. I could see Rhonda's eyes darting between us, sensing that something was off but unable to pinpoint what. Just as I was about to push further, Rhonda's phone rang. She fumbled for it, relief evident on her face at the interruption. "Oh, I must take this," she said, standing abruptly. "It's my investment advisor. Very important." As she hurried from the room, I exchanged glances with Daniel and Fred. We'd heard enough to confirm our suspicions, but we needed concrete proof. "I'm going to follow her," I whispered, rising from my seat. Daniel caught my arm. "Clara, are you sure? It could be dangerous if she catches you." I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. "We need to know the truth, Daniel, all of it. This might be our only chance." With a nod from both men, I slipped out of the dining room. I could hear Rhonda's hushed voice coming from the guest bathroom. Silently, I crept closer, my heart racing as I prepared to uncover the full extent of her deception. As I pressed my ear to the door, Rhonda's words made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about stolen money or secret credit cards. What I heard in that moment would change everything, pushing our family drama into territory I never could have imagined. I knew then that I had a choice to make, one that would determine the fate of our family forever. My hand trembled as I turned the doorknob, stepping back into the dining room. Daniel and Fred looked up expectantly, their faces etched with concern. "Clara?" Daniel asked, rising from his chair. "What happened? What did you hear?" I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. How could I tell them what I'd just discovered? Before I could gather my thoughts, Rhonda swept back into the room, her face flushed with triumph. Well, that was a productive call, she announced, settling into her seat. I've just secured a fantastic investment opportunity. We'll be rolling in money soon enough. Fred's eyebrows shot up. We? What exactly do you mean, Rhonda? Rhonda waved her hand dismissively. Oh, you know, darling, our family, our future. It's all taken care of. I couldn't hold back any longer. Is that what you told your lover on the phone, Rhonda? That you've taken care of everything? The room fell silent. Rhonda's face drained of color, her eyes darting between us like a cornered animal. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. Daniel stood up slowly, his voice dangerously low. Mom, what's going on? What is Clara talking about? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I heard you, Rhonda, on the phone. You're not just stealing money. You're planning to leave, to run away with someone and take everything Fred has left. Fred's face crumpled, years of pain and betrayal etched into every line. Is this true, Rhonda? After everything we've been through? Rhonda's shock quickly morphed into defiance. She stood, drawing herself up to her full height. You don't understand. None of you do. I deserve more than this mundane existence. I'm meant for greater things. Greater things? Daniel exploded. You've stolen from your own family. You've lied, cheated, and now you're planning to abandon us? Rhonda's laugh was bitter and cold. Abandon you? Please. You're all adults. It's time I lived for myself for once. I watched in horror as she turned her venom towards me. And you, Clara, little Miss Perfect, always trying so hard to please everyone. Did you think eavesdropping would make you the family hero? You're pathetic. Her words stung, but I refused to back down. At least I have integrity, Rhonda. At least I know the value of family and love. Love? Rhonda spat. Love doesn't pay for designer clothes or exotic vacations. Love is for fools and dreamers. Fred stood up slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Get out, Rhonda blinked, taken aback. What did you say? I said, get out, Fred repeated, his voice gaining strength. You're no longer welcome in this house or in our lives. For a moment, Rhonda looked genuinely shocked. Then her face hardened into a mask of contempt. Fine. I don't need any of you. I've got everything I need right here. She patted her designer handbag meaningfully. As she strode towards the door, Daniel called out, Wait! We all turned to look at him. His face was a storm of emotions, anger, hurt, and something else I couldn't quite place. Before you go, Mom, he said, his voice tight with control, there's something you should know. Rhonda paused, her hand on the doorknob. And what's that, dear? Daniel's smile was grim. While you were on the phone, I called the police. They're on their way right now. The color drained from Rhonda's face. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? Daniel challenged. You've left us no choice, Mom. It's time you face the consequences of your actions. As if on cue, we heard the distant wail of police sirens. Rhonda's eyes widened in panic. She lunged for the door, but Fred was quicker. He blocked her path, his normally gentle face set in stone. It's over, Rhonda, he said softly. As the sirens grew louder, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread wash over me. This was it, the moment of truth. But as I looked at the shattered remains of our family dinner, I couldn't help but wonder, even if justice was served, could we ever truly recover from this betrayal? The police sirens grew louder, their wailing a fitting soundtrack to the chaos unfolding in our dining room. Rhonda's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape route. But Fred stood firm, his normally gentle demeanor replaced by an unyielding resolve. You're not going anywhere, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Rhonda's face contorted with rage. You can't do this to me, I'm your wife! Fred's laugh was hollow. A wife who's stolen from me, lied to me, and planned to abandon me. No, Rhonda, you stopped being my wife long ago. I watched in stunned silence as years of pent-up frustration and hurt poured out of Fred. It was as if a dam had broken, releasing a torrent of emotions he'd kept bottled up for far too long. Do you have any idea what you've done? Fred continued, his voice rising. The years of hard work, the sacrifices we made, all gone because of your greed. Rhonda's defiance crumbled, replaced by a desperation that made her look older and smaller. Fred, please, she pleaded. We can work this out. I'll change, I promise. But Fred was unmoved. It's too late for promises, Rhonda. Far too late. The sound of car doors slamming outside jolted us all. Rhonda made one last desperate lunge for the back door, but Daniel intercepted her, grasping her arm firmly. Enough, Mom, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It's over. As if on cue, there was a sharp knock at the front door. I moved to answer it, my legs feeling like lead. 2 police officers stood on our porch, their faces grim. "We received a call about a theft?" one of them asked. I nodded, stepping aside to let them in. As they entered the dining room, the scene before them must have looked surreal. The remnants of a birthday dinner, a family in tatters, and a woman clutching a designer handbag like a lifeline. What happened next was a blur. Rhonda was read her rights, handcuffed, and led away. As she passed me, she hissed, "This is all your fault, Clara. I hope you're happy now." Her words hit me like a physical blow. Was this my fault? Had my desire for justice destroyed our family? As the police car drove away, its lights flashing in the darkness, an eerie silence fell over the house. Daniel, Fred, and I stood in the living room, the weight of what had just transpired hanging heavy in the air. Fred was the first to speak. I need to sit down," he mumbled, collapsing into an armchair. Daniel rushed to his father's side. "Dad, are you okay? Do you need anything?" Fred shook his head, looking suddenly old and frail. "How did we get here?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Where did it all go wrong?" I felt a lump form in my throat. This man, who had always been so strong, so dependable, now looked utterly lost. And in that moment, I realized the true cost of Rhonda's actions, not just in dollars and cents, but in trust shattered and lives upended. Daniel caught my eye, his expression a mix of grief and determination. "We'll get through this," he said, as much to himself as to us. "We're still a family. We'll figure it out together." But as I looked around the room, at Fred's slumped shoulders, at the half-eaten birthday cake on the dining table, at the empty space where Rhonda should have been, I couldn't help but wonder if some wounds were too deep to heal. The clock on the mantel chimed midnight, marking the end of this disastrous day. But as the last chime faded away, I realized that this wasn't an ending at all. It was the beginning of a long, painful journey, one that would test the bonds of our family like never before. As I sank onto the couch, exhaustion finally overtaking me, one question echoed in my mind. Where do we go from here? 6 months had passed since that fateful night when our family was torn apart. As I stood in our backyard, watching Daniel and Fred set up tables for our annual summer barbecue, I marveled at how much had changed and how much had stayed the same. The sound of laughter drew my attention to the porch, where our extended family was gathering. Cousins, aunts, uncles, faces I hadn't seen in years. It turns out Rhonda's deceit had reached far beyond our immediate circle, isolating us from those we loved most. "Clara?" Daniel's voice pulled me from my reverie. "You okay?" I smiled, reaching for his hand. "Just thinking about how far we've come." He squeezed my fingers, understanding in his eyes. "It hasn't been easy, but we made it." As if on cue, Fred joined us, a spring in his step that I hadn't seen in years. "The grill's all fired up. Who's ready for some burgers?" The cheerful chorus of responses warmed my heart. This was what family was supposed to be, supportive, loving, united. As we settled around the tables, the conversation flowed freely. Stories were shared, old wounds began to heal, and new connections were forged. I found myself next to Aunt Mildred, Rhonda's sister, who had been estranged from us for years. "I can't tell you how sorry I am," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "I had no idea what Rhonda was doing. If I'd known." I patted her hand gently. "You couldn't have known. None of us did." She nodded, dabbing at her eyes. "When I found out, well, let's just say Rhonda won't be getting any support from our side of the family. What she did was unforgivable." As the afternoon wore on, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the betrayal, the long nights spent comforting Fred as he grappled with the loss of his life savings. But also the strength we'd found in each other, the bonds that had been tested and emerged stronger than ever. Just as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over our gathering, Daniel clinked his glass for attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet yard, "to family, not just the one we're born into, but the one we choose, to second chances and new beginnings." A chorus of "hear, hear" echoed around the tables. As I raised my glass, I caught Fred's eye. The pain was still there, a shadow behind his smile, but there was something else too. Hope, resilience, and a determination to move forward. "And," Daniel continued, his gaze finding mine, "to my beautiful wife Clara, Without her strength, her compassion, and her unwavering love, we might not be here today. She held us together when everything was falling apart. Tears pricked my eyes as Daniel pulled me close, planting a kiss on my forehead. The applause and cheers from our family washed over me, a balm to the wounds of the past 6 months. As the party began to wind down, I found myself alone with Fred by the old oak tree. He looked thoughtful, his eyes distant. "Penny for your thoughts?" I asked softly. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am. Despite everything, I still have so much to be grateful for." I nodded, understanding completely. We all do. Fred turned to me, his expression serious. "Clara, I want you to know, you're the daughter I always wished I had. Thank you for being there for us, for me." Overcome with emotion, I pulled him into a tight hug. As we embraced, I felt the last pieces of our fractured family clicking back into place. Later that night, as Daniel and I cleared the last of the dishes, he paused, pulling me into his arms. "Happy anniversary, Clara," he whispered. I blinked in surprise. With everything that had happened, I'd completely forgotten. Daniel chuckled at my expression. "I know, I almost forgot too. But then I realized, today marks 6 months since that disastrous birthday dinner. 6 months since we started rebuilding." As I looked into his eyes, I saw our future stretching out before us, bright, full of love, and stronger for having weathered the storm. "Happy anniversary, Daniel," I replied, sealing the words with a kiss. We had survived Rhonda's betrayal, emerged from the darkness, and found our way back to the light. And in that moment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, as a family. The doorbell chimed, shattering the peaceful Sunday afternoon I'd been savoring. I knew who it was before I even reached the door. Taking a deep breath, I plastered on my best smile and swung it open. "Olivia, darling!" Madeline's shrill voice pierced the air as she swept past me into the foyer. "Where's my handsome son?" "Hello, Madeline," I managed, closing the door behind her. "Ethan's in his office. He's got a big presentation tomorrow." She tsked, shaking her head. "Always working, that boy. You'd think he'd take a break on the Lord's Day." Her eyes narrowed as she looked me up and down. "And what about you, dear? Any news?" I felt my stomach clench. "News? Oh, you know." She waved her hand dismissively. "A little bundle of joy on the way, perhaps?" I forced a laugh. "Madeline, we've only been married 3 months. We're not quite ready for that yet." Her lips thinned. "Not ready? Olivia, dear, you're not getting any younger. Tick-tock!" Before I could respond, Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking harried. "Mom, what are you doing here? Can't a mother visit her only son?" Madeline cooed, moving to embrace him. I caught Ethan's eye over her shoulder, silently pleading for backup. He gave a slight shake of his head, and my heart sank. "Of course, Mom," he said, leading her into the living room. "How about some tea?" I trailed behind them, my earlier contentment evaporating. As I busied myself in the kitchen, their voices drifted in. "Ethan, darling, I'm worried," Madeline was saying. "You're not getting any younger, you know. Don't you want children?" "Mom, please," Ethan sighed. "Olivia and I will have kids when we're ready." "But when will that be?" she pressed. "You can't wait forever. What if there are problems?" I nearly dropped the teacup I was holding. Gritting my teeth, I carried the tray into the living room. "Here we are," I said brightly, setting it down. "Madeline, how's the garden club?" She waved away my attempt at distraction. "Never mind that. We were just discussing your future plans. Ethan tells me you're not ready for children yet." I looked at Ethan, but he was suddenly very interested in his tea. "We're focusing on our careers right now," I said carefully. "There's plenty of time for kids later." Madeline's eyes narrowed. "Is there? Olivia, you're what, 30? 31, I corrected, my smile feeling more like a grimace. "Well, then you should know better than anyone that time is of the essence. You don't want to miss your chance, do you?" I felt a flash of anger. "Madeline, with all due respect, this is between Ethan and me." She turned to Ethan, her voice syrupy sweet. "Darling, don't you want to give me grandchildren? I'm not getting any younger, you know." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, I told you we're not ready yet." "But why?" she pressed. "Is it because of her career? Surely she can put that on hold for a while." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Excuse me?" Madeline turned back to me, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Dear, I'm sure your little writing hobby is fun, but nothing compares to the joy of motherhood. You wouldn't want to deprive Ethan of that, would you? I looked at Ethan, silently begging him to say something, anything. But he just sat there, staring into his teacup. I think, I said slowly, my voice shaking, that it's time for you to leave, Madeline. Her eyebrows shot up. I beg your pardon? Mom, Ethan finally spoke up. Maybe we should continue this another time. Madeline stood, gathering her purse. I see. Well, I suppose I know when I'm not wanted, but mark my words, you two are making a mistake. Don't come crying to me when it's too late. As the door slammed behind her, I turned to Ethan, fury building inside me. How could you just sit there and let her talk to me like that? He ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. Liv, you know how she gets. It's easier to just let her say her piece and move on. Easier for who? I demanded, because it sure as hell isn't easier for me. Ethan's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, frowning. Look, I've got to take this. We'll talk later, okay? As he hurried back to his office, I sank onto the couch, the weight of Madeline's words pressing down on me. Was I being selfish? Was I depriving Ethan of something he wanted? The doubts crept in, poisoning what had been a perfect Sunday afternoon. And as I sat there alone, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much bigger storm. I stared at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking mockingly at me. The words wouldn't come. How could they, when all I could think about was Madeline's visit and Ethan's silence? The study door creaked open and Ethan poked his head in. Hey, Liv, you coming to bed? I glanced at the clock. Midnight already. In a bit, I need to finish this article. He hesitated, then stepped into the room. Listen, about yesterday. I turned to face him, my heart racing. Finally, we were going to talk about it. I'm sorry Mom ambushed us like that, he said, running a hand through his hair. You know how she gets. I waited for more, but he just stood there, looking uncomfortable. That's it? I asked, disbelief coloring my voice. You're sorry she ambushed us? He frowned. What do you want me to say, Olivia? She's my mother. I want you to stand up for me, I snapped, the frustration of the past day boiling over. I want you to tell her to back off about the grandchildren thing. I want you to be on my side. Ethan's face hardened. I am on your side, but you're not being fair. Mom's just excited about the idea of grandkids. Is that so wrong? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Excited? Ethan, she practically called my career a hobby and told me to put it on hold. And you just sat there. He threw up his hands. What was I supposed to do, start a fight? You were supposed to support me. I stood up, my hands shaking. You were supposed to tell her that our family planning is none of her business. Ethan's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it. I saw a flicker of something cross his face before he shoved it back in his pocket. Look, he said, his voice tight, I've got a lot on my plate right now with work. I don't need this stress at home, too. Can't you just, I don't know, play nice with Mom for a while? I felt like I'd been slapped. Play nice? Are you kidding me? He sighed heavily. Olivia, please, you know how important family is to me. Mom's just trying to be involved. And what about me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Aren't I your family now? Ethan's face softened slightly. Of course you are, but his phone buzzed again, more insistently this time. He pulled it out, frowning at the screen. I've got to take this, he muttered, already turning away. Ethan, wait. But he was gone, the study door closing behind him. I sank back into my chair, feeling hollow. Minutes ticked by as I sat there, listening to the muffled sound of Ethan's voice from the other room. Who was he talking to at this hour? Work, he'd said, but something didn't feel right. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I crept to the door, opening it just a crack. Can't keep doing this, Ethan was saying, his voice low and urgent. It's too risky. Olivia's already suspicious. My blood ran cold. What was he talking about? No, I understand, he continued after a pause. Just give me some time to figure things out, okay? I'll handle it. Handle what? My mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. I heard him approaching and quickly retreated to my desk, pretending to be engrossed in my work when he re-entered the study. Everything okay? I asked, proud of how steady my voice sounded. Ethan nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. Yeah, just work stuff. Listen, about earlier, can we just forget it? Start fresh tomorrow? I wanted to scream, to demand answers about the phone call I'd overheard, but the look on his face stopped me. There was something there, guilt, fear, that I'd never seen before. Sure, I heard myself say. Fresh start. He smiled, relief evident in his expression. Great, I'm heading to bed. Don't stay up too late, okay? As he left, I felt a chill settle over me. The Ethan I thought I knew, the man I'd married just 3 months ago, suddenly felt like a stranger, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever he was hiding, it was going to change everything. I turned back to my laptop, but the blinking cursor now seemed to be taunting me with all the questions I was too afraid to ask. I couldn't take it anymore. The tension in our house was suffocating, and Ethan's evasive behavior was driving me crazy. It was time to confront Madeline directly and set the record straight. I pulled into her driveway, my hands shaking as I cut the engine. Taking a deep breath, I marched up to the front door and rang the bell. Madeline answered, her eyebrows shooting up in surprise. Olivia, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, pushing past her into the foyer. She closed the door, her lips pursed. I suppose this is about our little chat the other day? Little chat? I spun to face her. You insulted my career and pressured us about having children. That's not a little chat, Madeline. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, don't be so sensitive, dear. I'm just looking out for my son's best interests. And what about my interests? I demanded. Did you ever consider that maybe I'm not ready for children? That my career is important to me? Madeline's eyes narrowed. Your career? Writing little articles online is hardly a career, Olivia. Ethan needs a wife who can support him properly, not play at being a writer. I felt like I'd been slapped. I am supporting him. Just because I don't want children right this second doesn't mean what? She interrupted. That you're holding my son back? Because that's exactly what you're doing. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Ethan walked in, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. Mom? Olivia? What's going on? Madeline turned to him, her voice suddenly syrupy sweet. Oh, Ethan, darling, I'm so glad you're here. Olivia was just explaining why she doesn't want to give you children. I gaped at her, then at Ethan. That is not what I was saying. Ethan looked between us, his face unreadable. Liv, what are you doing here? I came to talk to your mother, I said, willing him to understand, to clear the air about the other day. Madeline sniffed. There's nothing to clear up. I simply expressed my concern about your lack of family planning. Mom, Ethan said, his voice tight, this isn't the time or place for this discussion. I felt a flicker of hope. Was he finally going to stand up for me? But then he turned to me, his expression hardening. Olivia, you shouldn't have come here. This is between us, not my mother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Between us, Ethan. She's the one who keeps interfering. Don't blame your shortcomings on me, dear, Madeline interjected. If you were truly committed to this marriage, you'd be thinking about starting a family, not gallivanting off to confront your mother-in-law. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking exasperated. Can we please just drop this, Olivia? Let's go home. No, I said, my voice shaking. Not until we settle this. Ethan, I need you to tell your mother to back off. Tell her our family planning is none of her business. He hesitated, glancing between us. I could see the conflict in his eyes, and for a moment I thought he might actually do it. But then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, frowning at the screen. I have to take this, he muttered, already turning away. Ethan, wait. I reached for him, but he was already out the door, giraffe phone to his ear. I stood there, feeling utterly betrayed and alone. Madeline's triumphant smirk made my blood boil. Well, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. I suppose that settles things, doesn't it? My son knows where his priorities lie. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her understand how much she was hurting me. But the fight had drained out of me. This isn't over, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As I walked out, I heard Madeline's parting shot. Oh, I think it is, dear. I think it is. I got into my car, tears blurring my vision. Ethan was still on the phone, pacing in the driveway. He glanced up as I started the engine, a flicker of something. Guilt, regret, crossing his face. But it was too late. As I pulled away, I realized that the man I thought I'd married was gone. And in his place was a stranger who'd chosen his mother over his wife. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? I hadn't spoken to Ethan in days. The silence in our house was deafening, broken only by the click of my laptop keys as I threw myself into work. Anything to distract from the growing chasm between us. It was a sunny Saturday when I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I needed air, space to think. Without a word to Ethan, I grabbed my keys and headed out. I found myself at the park, watching families enjoy the warm weather. Children laughed, couples held hands, and for a moment, I let myself imagine what could have been. If only Ethan had stood up for me. If only Madeline wasn't so. A familiar laugh cut through my thoughts. I turned, and my heart stopped. There, not 20 feet away, was Ethan. But he wasn't alone. A beautiful woman sat beside him on a picnic blanket, a baby nestled in her arms. Ethan was making silly faces at the child, his eyes sparkling with joy. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. As if in slow motion, Ethan leaned over and kissed the woman's cheek. She beamed at him, then handed him the baby. He cradled the child with such tenderness, such love. My legs gave out and I sank onto a nearby bench. How long had this been going on? Was this why he'd been so distant, so unwilling to confront his mother about our own family plans? I must have made a sound because suddenly Ethan looked up. Our eyes met across the grass, and I saw the moment recognition hit him. His face drained of color. He said something to the woman, handing her back the baby, then started walking towards me. I wanted to run, to hide, but I was rooted to the spot. "Olivia," he said, his voice strained. "I can't explain." I found my voice, though it sounded foreign to my ears. "Explain what, Ethan? How you have a whole other family I knew nothing about." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I once found endearing. Now it made me want to scream. "It's not what you think. Haley, the baby, it's complicated." "Complicated?" I spat the word back at him. "What's complicated about it?" "You're cheating on me." "No," he looked panicked now. "It's not like that. Haley and I, we have history. The baby, it happened before you and I got serious." The pieces started falling into place. The late-night phone calls, the evasiveness, Madeline's insistence on grandchildren. "She knew," I whispered. "Your mother, she knew about them." Ethan's silence was all the confirmation I needed. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been lying to me?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "The baby's 6 months old." 6 months. We'd been married for 3. The math wasn't hard. "So when you proposed, when we got married, you knew?" He nodded, misery etched on his face. "I wanted to tell you. I didn't know how." I stood up, my whole body shaking. "You didn't know how? How about, Olivia, I have a child with another woman? Was that so hard?" "Please," he reached for me, but I jerked away. "Let me explain. We can work this out." But I was done listening, done trying to understand. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. "There's nothing to work out, Ethan," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You made your choice. You chose to lie, to build our entire marriage on a foundation of deceit." "Olivia, please." I held up a hand, silencing him. "No, I'm done. We're done." As I walked away, leaving Ethan standing there with his mouth open, I felt a strange mix of pain and relief. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by this stranger with his secret family. But as I got in my car, a new emotion surfaced. Determination. Ethan and Madeline had played me for a fool. Now it was time to show them exactly who they were dealing with. The game had changed, and I was ready to play. I stormed into our house, slamming the door behind me. "Ethan!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty rooms. "Where are you?" He appeared at the top of the stairs, his face pale. "Olivia, please let me explain." "Explain?" I laughed bitterly. "Oh, you're going to explain all right, every single detail." We faced each other in the living room, the tension crackling between us like live wires. Ethan looked like a cornered animal, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. "Start talking," I demanded. "And don't you dare leave anything out." He sank onto the couch, running his hands through his hair. "Haley and we dated years ago before I met you. It ended badly, and I thought that was it. But then, about 1.5 years ago, we ran into each other at a conference." My stomach churned as I did the math. 1.5 years ago, Ethan and I had been dating for 6 months. "One thing led to another," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake, Olivia. A stupid one-time mistake." "A mistake that resulted in a baby," I spat. He flinched. "I didn't know about the baby until after we were engaged. Haley reached out, told me she was pregnant. I panicked. I didn't know what to do." "So you decided to lie? To marry me while hiding the fact that you were about to become a father?" Ethan looked up at me, his eyes pleading. "I love you, Olivia. I didn't want to lose you. I thought I could handle it. Support Haley and the baby financially, but keep it separate from our life together. The pieces were falling into place now. That's why you've been working so much. The late-night phone calls, the secrecy. He nodded miserably. I've been trying to juggle everything. My company, our marriage, supporting Haley and the baby. And your mother? I asked, my voice sharp. Where does she fit into all this? Ethan's face crumpled. She found out, threatened to tell you if we didn't start a family of our own. The betrayal cut deep. Not just Ethan, but Madeline, too. They'd both been manipulating me, playing me for a fool. So that's why she's been pushing so hard for grandchildren, I said, the realization dawning. She already has one. She just wants one that's socially acceptable. Olivia, please. Ethan stood, reaching for me. I know I messed up, but I love you. We can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes. I stepped back out of his reach. Whatever it takes? Like what, Ethan? Are you going to abandon your child? Cut Haley out of your life completely? The silence that followed was deafening. I saw the conflict in his eyes, and in that moment I knew. He couldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. That's what I thought, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You can't have it both ways, Ethan. You can't keep your secret family and expect me to just accept it. What are you saying? He asked, fear creeping into his voice. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. I'm saying it's over. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and final. Ethan's face crumpled, a mix of grief and relief washing over him. Olivia, please. No, I cut him off. You made your choice, Ethan. You chose to lie, to build our entire marriage on a foundation of deceit. Now I'm making my choice. I pulled off my wedding ring, placing it on the coffee table with a soft clink. The sound seemed to echo in the silence of the room. I'll be staying with my parents until I can find a place of my own, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I suggest you use this time to figure out what kind of father you want to be. Because that's who you are now, Ethan. A father. Just not to any children of mine. As I walked out of the house, my head held high. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pain, certainly. Anger, without a doubt. But underneath it all, a growing sense of determination. Ethan and Madeline had underestimated me. They thought I would crumble, that I would accept their lies and manipulation. But they were wrong. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And I was ready to fight for the life I deserved. I'd been staying at my parents' house for a week when Ethan finally reached out. His text was simple. We need to talk, please. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at his house. As I pulled into the driveway, my stomach churned with a mix of anger and anxiety. Ethan opened the door before I could knock, his face haggard and unshaven. Olivia, he breathed, relief evident in his voice. Thank you for coming. I brushed past him into the living room, determined to keep this brief. What do you want, Ethan? He fumbled with something on the coffee table, then turned to face me, holding out a manila envelope. I had these drawn up. My heart stopped as I realized what he was holding. Divorce papers. Pre-signed. You're kidding me, I whispered, my voice shaking with rage. After everything, you're just going to hand me divorce papers? Ethan's face crumpled. I thought this was what you wanted. You said, I know what I said. I snapped. But I didn't think you'd just roll over and give up. Don't you even want to try to fix this? He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. I don't know how, Olivia. I've made such a mess of everything, with you, with Haley, with the baby. And your mother? I added bitterly. Ethan's eyes flashed with something. Anger? Regret? Mom's been difficult. She keeps pushing me to make things right with you, but also to step up for Haley and the baby. I can't win. I laughed humorlessly. Oh, poor Ethan, caught between all the women in his life. Did you ever stop to think about how your actions affected us, how they destroyed me? He reached for me, but I stepped back. Liv, please, I never meant to hurt you. I love you. Love me? I spat the words back at him. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied. You wouldn't have hidden your child from me. You would have stood up to your mother instead of letting her bully me about having children when you already had one. Ethan's face paled. I know I messed up. But please, Olivia, give me another chance. We can work this out. We can what, Ethan? I interrupted. Go back to the way things were? Pretend you don't have a child with another woman, that your mother didn't manipulate and lie to me for months? He fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy between us. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. You know what? You're right. This is what I want. I snatched the envelope from his hands, my fingers trembling slightly. If you're so eager to end our marriage, then let's do it. Ethan's eyes widened in panic. Olivia, wait, I didn't mean. But I was already heading for the door, divorce papers clutched tightly to my chest. As I reached for the handle, Ethan's next words stopped me cold. I'll lose everything if you leave. I turned slowly, disbelief etched on my face. What? He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. The company, it's not doing well. I've been using my own money to keep it afloat, to support Haley and the baby. If we divorce, if I have to split our assets, I'll lose it all. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. This was about Ethan's entire life crumbling around him. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered all the lies, all the betrayal, and my resolve hardened. You should have thought of that before you decided to lie to me, I said, my voice cold. Before you let your mother manipulate me. Before you fathered a child with another woman. I opened the door, pausing for one last look at the man I thought I knew. Goodbye, Ethan. I hope it was worth it. As I walked away, envelope in hand, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pain, certainly. Anger, without a doubt, but underneath it all, a growing sense of freedom. Ethan had made his choices. Now it was time for me to make mine. I'd barely slept in the week since I'd left Ethan's house with those divorce papers. My parents' guest room felt like a prison, the walls closing in with each passing day. I was drowning in a sea of betrayal and uncertainty. The shrill ring of my phone cut through my brooding. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Olivia, please. His voice was ragged, desperate. I need to see you. We need to talk. We've said everything there is to say, Ethan, I replied, my voice cold. No, you don't understand. Everything's falling apart. The company, I'm about to lose it all. Please just meet me. One last time. Against my better judgment, I agreed. An hour later, I found myself at our old favorite coffee shop, watching Ethan fidget nervously across the table. Talk, I said, my tone leaving no room for small talk. Ethan took a deep breath. The company's in trouble. Big trouble. I've been using my personal funds to keep it afloat, to support Haley and the baby. But now, with the divorce, I'm going to lose everything. I felt a flicker of sympathy, quickly extinguished by anger. And that's my problem because I still love you, Olivia, he pleaded. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But if we could just try, if you could find it in your heart to forgive me, your heart to forgive me. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my father. Call me ASAP. Important news about Ethan's business. Excusing myself, I stepped outside to call Dad. Olivia, he said, his voice grave. I've been doing some digging. Ethan's company, it's worse than he's letting on. There are rumors of fraud, of cooked books. If this gets out, he's not just losing the company. He could face jail time. My world tilted on its axis. Fraud? Jail? This was so much bigger than I'd imagined. Returning to the table, I looked at Ethan with new eyes. Was he truly desperate to save our marriage, or was he just trying to save himself? Tell me the truth, Ethan, I demanded. All of it, about the company, about Haley, about everything. He crumbled before my eyes, confessing to financial mismanagement, to using company funds for personal expenses, including supporting Haley and the baby. He'd been robbing Peter to pay Paul, and now it was all catching up to him. I thought I could fix it, he said, his voice breaking. I thought if I could just hold on a little longer, make a big deal, everything would be okay. But now you want me to save you, I finished for him. He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. If we stay together, if we present a united front, maybe we can weather this storm. Please, Olivia, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you, help me. I sat there, stunned by the magnitude of what he was asking. Stay with him? After all the lies, the betrayal? Risk my own future to save him from his mistakes? But then I thought about Haley, about the innocent baby caught in the middle of all this. About the employees at Ethan's company who would lose their jobs if it all came crashing down. I need time to think, I said finally, standing up. This isn't just about us anymore. As I walked out of the coffee shop, my mind was reeling. The man I had loved, the man I had built my life with, was now a stranger to me. A liar, a cheat, possibly even a criminal. But he was also the father of an innocent child, the employer of dozens of people who depended on him. I found myself at a crossroads, facing the biggest decision of my life. Do I walk away, protect myself from further hurt and betrayal? Or do I stay, try to salvage what's left of our life together, potentially at great cost to myself? As I drove back to my parents' house, one thought kept echoing in my mind. Whatever I decided, there was no going back. The life I had known was gone forever. The only question now was, what kind of life did I want to build from the ashes? I sat in my lawyer's office, divorce papers spread before me. My hand hovered over the signature line, pen poised. This was it, the moment that would officially end my marriage to Ethan. Are you sure about this, Olivia? My lawyer asked gently. Once you sign, there's no going back. Was I sure? The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. Ethan's desperate pleas, the truth about his company's financial troubles, the innocent child caught in the middle of our mess. It all swirled in my mind, a chaotic storm of conflicting feelings. But then I remembered. I remembered the lies, the betrayal, the way Ethan had chosen his mother and his secret family over me time and time again. I remembered the look on his face when he handed me those pre-signed divorce papers, so ready to throw away our marriage. My jaw set with determination. I'm sure, I said, and signed my name with a flourish. As I walked out of the office, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was done. I was free. My phone buzzed. A new email. I opened it, expecting another plea from Ethan. Instead, I found myself staring at a job offer. A major publishing house wanted me to write a series of articles on women's empowerment and resilience in the face of adversity. I laughed out loud, startling a passerby. It was perfect. Everything I'd been through, all the pain and betrayal, had led me to this moment. I had a story to tell, and now I had the platform to tell it. As I drove home, to my new apartment, not my parents' house, I found myself thinking about Ethan, about Haley, and their baby. I hoped they'd find a way to make it work, for the child's sake if nothing else. But it wasn't my problem anymore. I walked into my apartment, still bare and echoing with newness. On the kitchen counter sat a vase of flowers with a card. From Dad, proud of you, kiddo, here's to new beginnings. Tears pricked my eyes, but for the first time in months, they were tears of joy, not sorrow. My phone rang. It was Madeline. I hesitated, then answered. Olivia, she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. I owe you an apology. I sat down, stunned. You do? I was wrong, she continued. About everything, the way I treated you, the pressure I put on you and Ethan. I thought I was doing what was best for my son, but I see now how much damage I caused. I listened in silence as Madeline poured out her regrets, her fears for Ethan's future, her hopes that someday I might find it in my heart to forgive her. When she finished, I took a deep breath. Thank you for calling, Madeline, I said. I appreciate your apology. I can't say I forgive you, not yet. But I hope you'll use this experience to be a better grandmother to Ethan and Haley's child than you were a mother-in-law to me. After we hung up, I sat in silence, processing everything. Then, with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months, I opened my laptop and began to write. In the end, it's not about the betrayals we suffer or the lies we uncover. It's about how we rise from the ashes, how we rebuild ourselves from the ground up. This is my story, a story of heartbreak and renewal, of shattered dreams and new beginnings. The words flowed freely, my fingers flying over the keys. As the sun set outside my window, casting a warm glow over my new home, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had lost a husband, but I had found myself. I had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. And now I had a whole new life ahead of me, full of possibilities and promise. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. The crystal vase shattered against the wall, inches from my head. I ducked, my heart pounding as I stared at James, his face contorted with rage. 35 years, Maggie. 35 goddamn years, and this is how you repay me, he roared, his fists clenched at his sides. I straightened, squaring my shoulders. Repay you? For what, James? The constant criticism? The manipulation? The way you've treated our children? His eyes narrowed. I gave you everything. A beautiful home, financial security. Everything except respect, I cut in, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Everything except love. James lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You ungrateful. Let go of me, I hissed, wrenching away from his grip. This is exactly why I'm leaving. I won't live like this anymore. The doorbell rang, startling us both. James stepped back, running a hand through his silver hair. That'll be Sarah, I said, moving towards the door. She's here to help me pack. James's face paled. You told the kids? I nodded, my hand on the doorknob. They deserve to know the truth. Our daughter's voice called from outside. Mom? Dad? Everything okay in there? I opened the door, forcing a smile. Hi, sweetheart. Come on in. Sarah stepped inside, her lawyer's eyes quickly assessing the scene. The broken vase, James's flushed face, my trembling hands. What's going on? She demanded, her gaze darting between us. James cleared his throat. Your mother has decided to abandon her family. After all these years, she's walking out on us. I felt a surge of anger. Don't you dare twist this, James. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm saving myself. Sarah's eyes widened. Mom? Is this true? You're leaving? I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. I'm sorry, honey. I should have done this years ago. James scoffed. You're being ridiculous, Maggie. Where will you go? How will you support yourself? I'll figure it out, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Anything's better than staying here. Sarah stepped between us. Okay, let's all take a breath. Mom, why don't we go upstairs and pack your things? Dad, maybe you should give us some space. James's face darkened. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere. Fine, I snapped. We'll go upstairs. Come on, Sarah. As we climbed the stairs, I heard James muttering, She'll be back. She's got nowhere else to go. In our bedroom, soon to be just his, I began throwing clothes into a suitcase. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her face a mix of concern and confusion. Mom, are you sure about this? It's so sudden. I paused, a handful of blouses clutched to my chest. It might seem sudden to you, honey, but I've been thinking about this for a long time. Your father and we haven't been happy for years. Sarah's brow furrowed. But why now? What changed? I sighed, sitting beside her. I did. I finally realized I deserve better, and so do you and Daniel. Daniel doesn't know yet, does he? I shook my head. I'll call him once I'm settled. I didn't want to burden him while he's in the middle of his research project. Sarah nodded, then stood up. Okay, let's get you packed. Where are you planning to stay? I've got a room at the Sunset Inn for now. I'll figure out something more permanent soon. As we finished packing, a crash echoed from downstairs. We rushed to the landing to see James in the foyer, a broken picture frame at his feet. Our wedding photo lay among the shattered glass. You want out? He shouted up at me. Fine, but don't think you're taking half of what's mine. I made this family and I can break it just as easily. I felt Sarah stiffen beside me. In that moment, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful battle. But for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. I was finally taking control of my life, and no matter what James threw at me, I wasn't going back. The Sunset Inn's floral wallpaper seemed to close in on me as I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone clutched in my trembling hand. I'd been staring at Daniel's number for what felt like hours, trying to summon the courage to call my son. A knock at the door made me jump. Mom? It's me, Sarah's voice called. I let out a relieved sigh. Come in, honey. Sarah entered, her eyes scanning the small room. How are you holding up? I'm managing, I said, attempting a smile. I was just about to call Daniel. She sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on my arm. Want me to do it? I shook my head. No, I need to do this myself. Taking a deep breath, I dialed. Daniel answered on the third ring. Mom, is everything okay? His concerned tone brought tears to my eyes. Daniel, sweetheart, there's something I need to tell you. As I explained the situation, I could hear the shock in his voice. But Mom, why now, after all these years? It's been a long time coming, honey. Your father, he's not the man you think he is. There was a long pause. What do you mean? I glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Daniel, your father has been controlling and manipulative for years. He's pushed all of us to be what he wanted, not who we are. That's not true, Daniel protested. Dad always supported my environmental work. I felt a pang of guilt. Honey, do you remember when you wanted to study marine biology? Your father convinced you to focus on something more practical instead. He was just looking out for my future, Daniel argued, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Was he? I pressed. Or was he molding you into what he thought you should be? Before Daniel could respond, my phone beeped with an incoming call. It was James. "Daniel, I have to go. Your father's calling. We'll talk more soon, okay?" I switched calls, my heart racing. "James?" His voice was cold. "I hope you're happy, Maggie. Daniel just texted me asking about some ridiculous accusations you've made." "They're not accusations, James. They're the truth," he scoffed. "The truth? You want to talk about truth? How about the truth of how you're going to survive without me? You haven't worked in decades. You have no skills, no prospects." His words stung, but I refused to let him see how much. "I'll manage." "Will you?" he sneered. "And what about the kids? You think they'll choose you over the comfort and security I provide?" "Our children aren't for sale, James," I snapped. "We'll see about that," he replied ominously before hanging up. I turned to Sarah, my hands shaking. "He's going to try to turn them against me." Sarah's jaw clenched. "He can try, but we won't let him succeed." Just then, my phone chimed with a text from Daniel. "Dad says you're having some kind of breakdown. Is that true?" I showed Sarah the message, feeling a wave of despair. "See, it's already starting." Sarah stood up, determination in her eyes. "Mom, we need to fight back. We can't let Dad control the narrative." "But how?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed. "We tell the truth, all of it. No more protecting Dad's image." She paused, her expression softening. "Do you remember when I was 10 and Dad pushed me into that junior debate competition?" I nodded, the memory flooding back. "You were so nervous you didn't want to do it." But Dad insisted, said it would look good on college applications." Sarah's voice hardened. "I cried myself to sleep for weeks, but he wouldn't listen." "I should have stood up for you more," I said, regret washing over me. Sarah shook her head. "That's not the point, Mom. The point is, we've all been living under Dad's thumb for too long. It's time to break free." As if on cue, my phone rang again. It was Daniel. "Mom," his voice was hesitant, "I've been thinking about what you said, about marine biology." I held my breath, waiting. I think you might be right, about Dad, I mean." He paused. "Can we talk more? In person?" Relief flooded through me. "Of course, sweetheart. Why don't you come over to the inn?" As I hung up, I looked at Sarah, a mix of hope and determination rising within me. "Your brother's coming, I think. I think he's starting to see the truth." Sarah squeezed my hand. "That's great, Mom. But remember, this is just the beginning. Dad won't give up without a fight." I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of strength igniting within me. James had controlled our family for too long. It was time to reclaim our lives, no matter the cost. The tension in the small motel room was palpable as Daniel paced back and forth, his brow furrowed in confusion and disbelief. Sarah sat beside me on the bed, her hand resting supportively on my arm. "I just can't believe it," Daniel muttered, running his fingers through his hair. "All these years, and I never saw it." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to reveal. "There's more, Daniel. So much more that you both need to know about your father." Sarah leaned in, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. "What is it, Mom? What else has he done?" I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. It started small, criticisms about my appearance, my cooking, the way I raised you both. But over time it became more. Daniel stopped pacing, his eyes fixed on me. "More how?" "He controlled everything, our finances, our social life, even my relationships with my own family." My voice trembled. "He isolated me, made me dependent on him. And when I tried to stand up for myself, he'd threatened to take you both away." Sarah's grip on my arm tightened. "Mom, that's emotional abuse. Why didn't you tell us?" I was ashamed, I admitted, tears welling in my eyes, and scared. Your father can be vindictive when he doesn't get his way. Daniel slumped into a chair, his face pale. "I remember the night before my college interviews. Dad stayed up with me, drilling me on what to say, how to act. I thought he was being supportive, but now—" "He was controlling you," Sarah finished, her voice hard. I nodded. "He did the same with both of you. Remember your debate competitions, Sarah? And Daniel, the way he pushed you away from marine biology?" They exchanged glances, years of manipulation suddenly coming into focus. "There's something else," I said, my heart racing. "Something I've never told anyone." Sarah and Daniel leaned in, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. 10 years ago, I found out your father was having an affair." The words tumbled out, a weight lifting from my chest. "When I confronted him, he threatened to leave me with nothing if I ever breathed a word of it to anyone." The room fell silent. Then suddenly Daniel stood up, his fists clenched. "I'll kill him," he growled. Sarah jumped up, though placing a restraining hand on her brother's arm. "No, Daniel, we can't stoop to his level. We need to be smarter than that." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from James. "I know you're with the kids. Stop poisoning them against me, or you'll regret it." I showed them the message, my hands shaking. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "That's it. We're filing for a restraining order first thing tomorrow." Daniel nodded in agreement. "And I'm canceling my research trip. I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone, Mom." Tears of gratitude streamed down my face. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you both from him sooner." Sarah hugged me tightly. "You're protecting us now, Mom. That's what matters." As we sat there, united in our newfound understanding, a knock at the door made us all jump. "Maggie?" James's voice called from the other side. "I know you're in there. Open up, or I'll have the manager let me in." Daniel moved towards the door, his face set in determination, but Sarah held him back. "Wait," she whispered, pulling out her phone. "I'm recording this. We need evidence of his behavior." I took a deep breath, years of fear and submission battling with my newfound courage. Then, squaring my shoulders, I walked to the door. "Go away, James," I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. "We have nothing to say to you." "Don't you dare shut me out," he roared, pounding on the door. "I made you, Maggie. You're nothing without me." As James continued his tirade, Sarah filmed while Daniel called the police. In that moment, watching my children stand up to their father's abuse, I felt a surge of pride and determination. This was just the beginning of our fight, but for the first time in decades, I wasn't facing it alone. Whatever James threw at us next, we would face it together, as a family. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of my new apartment, a modest one-bedroom I'd managed to rent with Sarah's help. It had been 2 weeks since the incident at the motel, and life had settled into an uneasy calm. I sipped my coffee, trying to ignore the gnawing anxiety in my stomach. The phone rang, startling me. It was Daniel. "Mom, have you seen the news?" His voice was tight with concern. I fumbled for the remote, turning on the TV. My heart dropped as I saw James's face plastered across the screen, his usually impeccable appearance disheveled. The news anchor's voice filled the room. "Local business mogul James Blackwell has been accused of embezzlement and fraud. Sources say the allegations involve millions of dollars." My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Mom, are you okay?" Daniel's voice seemed far away. I need to call you back," I managed, ending the call. My mind raced. James, a criminal? It seemed impossible, yet a part of me wasn't surprised. His obsession with success, his need for control, had it all led to this? The phone rang again, Sarah this time. "Mom, I'm on my way over. Don't talk to anyone, especially not Dad or the press." I nodded, forgetting she couldn't see me. "Okay," I mumbled. As I waited for Sarah, my emotions warred within me. Part of me felt a vindictive satisfaction. James was finally facing consequences for his actions. But another part, the part that had loved him for over 3 decades, ached with a confusing mix of concern and guilt. Sarah burst through the door, her lawyer mode in full swing. "Mom, we need to talk strategy. Dad's lawyers might try to implicate you in this mess." I stared at her, stunned. "Me? But I didn't know anything about his business dealings." She sighed, sitting beside me. "I know, Mom. But you were his wife for 35 years. They might argue you benefited from his illegal activities." The room seemed to spin. "This can't be happening," I whispered. Just then my phone buzzed with a text. It was James. "I need to see you. Please, I can explain everything." I showed Sarah the message, my hand trembling. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't respond. In fact, let me have your phone. We need to protect you from any potential legal implications." As I handed over my phone, a wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Despite everything, a small part of me wanted to hear James out, to understand how we'd ended up here. "Sarah," I said hesitantly, what if we're wrong about this? What if James is innocent?" She looked at me, her expression a mix of sympathy and frustration. "Mom, after everything he's done, how can you still defend him?" I shook my head, tears welling up. "I'm not defending him. I need to know the truth." Sarah's phone rang. It was Daniel. She put him on speaker. "I've been doing some digging," he said, his voice tense. "Dad's company has been in financial trouble for years. He's been cooking the books, taking out massive loans. It's bad, really bad. I felt the blood drain from my face. Our comfortable life, the vacations, the gifts, had it all been built on lies? Sarah squeezed my hand. Mom, I know this is hard, but we need to protect you. I think we should consider talking to the authorities. Tell them everything we know about Dad's behavior, his control over the family finances. I stared at her, the full weight of the situation crashing down on me. This wasn't just about leaving James anymore. This was about potentially sending him to prison. I need some time to think, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As Sarah and Daniel continued to discuss the situation, I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. The life I'd known for decades was crumbling around me. James's actions had put not just himself, but our entire family at risk. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could retreat, try to distance myself from the scandal, or I could step forward, tell my story, and finally break free from James's control once and for all. Taking a deep breath, I turned back to my children. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Let's talk to the authorities. It's time the truth came out. All of it. The fluorescent lights of the police station buzzed overhead as I sat, hands clasped tightly in my lap, waiting for the detective to return. Sarah sat beside me, her lawyer persona firmly in place, while Daniel paced nervously near the door. Mrs. Blackwell? Detective Ramirez appeared, a thick file in her hands. We have some questions about your husband's financial activities. I nodded, my throat dry. I'll do my best to answer. As the detective began her questioning, I felt like I was walking through a minefield of my past. Each answer seemed to reveal more about the life I'd been blind to for so long. Mrs. Blackwell, were you aware of any offshore accounts your husband might have had? I shook my head, feeling a mix of shame and anger. No, James handled all our finances. Sarah squeezed my hand supportively as the detective continued. And what about his business trips? Did you ever accompany him? A memory surfaced, sharp and painful. Once, to the Cayman Islands. He said it was a vacation, but I trailed off, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. Detective Ramirez leaned forward. But what, Mrs. Blackwell? He spent most of the time in meetings. I thought it was just work, but now? The questioning continued for what felt like hours. With each revelation, I felt the foundations of my life crumbling further. As we prepared to leave, Detective Ramirez pulled Sarah aside. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Sarah's face grew increasingly pale. In the car ride home, an oppressive silence filled the air. Finally, Daniel spoke up from the back seat. Mom, Sarah, what aren't you telling me? Sarah's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. The detective shared some information with me. It's bad, Daniel. My heart raced. What is it, Sarah? Please, just tell us. She took a deep breath. They found evidence that Dad's been laundering money for some very dangerous people. And there's more. I braced myself, unsure if I could handle any more revelations. They think he might have been involved in some kind of human trafficking operation. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. No, I whispered. That's impossible. James would never. But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. The late-night phone calls, the mysterious business associates, the unexplained cash, it all started to make a horrifying kind of sense. Daniel's voice cracked with emotion. How could we not have known? We pulled up to my apartment, all of us too shaken to speak. As we entered, Sarah's phone rang, her face paled as she answered. Yes, this is Sarah Blackwell. What? When? She listened intently, her expression growing more alarmed by the second. As she hung up, she turned to us, her voice barely above a whisper. That was Dad's lawyer. He's gone. Disappeared. They think he might have fled the country. The room spun around me. James gone? After everything, he'd just left? Suddenly a fierce anger rose within me, burning away the shock and confusion. No, I said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in years. He doesn't get to run away from this. From us. Sarah and Daniel looked at me, surprised by my vehemence. Mom, Daniel asked hesitantly. I stood up, a new determination filling me. We're going to find him. We're going to uncover every secret, every lie, and we're going to make sure he faces the consequences of what he's done. Sarah nodded slowly. But Mom, if what the police suspect is true, we could be putting ourselves in danger. I met her gaze steadily. We've been in danger for years, Sarah. We just didn't know it. It's time we took control of our own lives. As my children looked at me with a mixture of awe and concern, I felt a shift within myself. The scared, submissive wife I'd been for so long was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to fight not just for herself, but for the truth and justice her family deserved. "So," I said, looking from Sarah to Daniel, "where do we start?" The rhythmic tapping of Sarah's heels echoed through the empty office building as we made our way to James's private suite. My heart raced, a mix of anticipation and dread coursing through my veins. We'd traced James to his old office, a place I once thought I knew so well. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Daniel whispered, his eyes darting nervously. I nodded, steeling myself. "We need answers, and they're in there." Sarah used her old keycard, a relic from her internship days, to unlock the door. As we stepped inside, the familiar scent of James's cologne hit me like a punch to the gut. "Let's make this quick," Sarah said, moving towards the computer. "I'll check his files, Daniel. You look through the drawers. Mom, keep watch." I stood by the door, my mind reeling. How had we come to this? Breaking into my husband's office, searching for evidence of his crimes. Suddenly, Daniel's sharp intake of breath caught my attention. "Mom, Sarah, you need to see this." We hurried over. In his hands was a thick folder, labeled simply, "Family." With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside were detailed dossiers on each of us. Financial records, medical histories, even surveillance photos. My blood ran cold as I realized the extent of James's obsession with control. "He's been watching us for years," Sarah whispered, her face pale. "Even after you left, Mom." Before I could respond, the computer beeped. Sarah had cracked James's password. "Oh my God," she breathed, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the files. "It's all here. The money laundering, the offshore accounts, the trafficking operation." I felt sick. How could he do this? How could we not have known? Daniel placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We couldn't have known, Mom. He fooled everyone." Suddenly, a noise from the hallway made us freeze. Footsteps getting closer. "Quick, hide!" Sarah hissed, shoving the folder into her bag and closing the computer. We ducked behind a large filing cabinet just as the door opened. My heart nearly stopped as James walked in, looking haggard and desperate. He moved quickly to his desk, rifling through drawers and muttering to himself, "It has to be here. I need those papers." I watched, a storm of emotions raging within me. This man, whom I'd loved for so long, was now a stranger, a criminal on the run. James slammed his fist on the desk in frustration. "Damn it!" In that moment, something inside me snapped. I couldn't hide anymore. Ignoring Sarah and Daniel's frantic whispers, I stepped out from our hiding place. "Looking for something, James?" He whirled around, his face a mask of shock and anger. "Maggie, what the hell are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Shouldn't you be halfway across the world by now?" His eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. I had no choice, if you knew what I was up against." "Then explain it to me, James," I demanded, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. "Explain how you could betray our family, how you could be involved in human trafficking." He paled. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter," I cut him off. "What matters is that it stops now. Turn yourself in, James. It's over." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I once loved, vulnerable, conflicted, but then his face hardened. "I'm sorry, Maggie, but I can't do that." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a gun. Sarah and Daniel burst from their hiding place. "Dad, no!" James's hand shook as he pointed the gun at us. "I never wanted it to come to this, but I can't go to prison. I won't." Time seemed to slow as I stared down the barrel of the gun. In that moment, I saw our entire life together flash before my eyes, the good times and the bad, the love and the lies. "James," I said softly, taking a step forward, "please, don't do this. Think of our children." His resolve wavered, the gun lowering slightly, but before he could respond, the door burst open. Detective Ramirez and a team of officers flooded in. "James Blackwell, put the gun down. You're under arrest." As the chaos erupted around us, I locked eyes with James one last time. In his gaze, I saw a mixture of defeat, regret, and something else, a silent plea for forgiveness. But as the officers handcuffed him and led him away, I knew that some things could never be forgiven. Our family would never be the same, but at least now we could begin to heal. The courtroom buzzed with tension as I sat on the hard wooden bench, Sarah and Daniel flanking me like protective sentinels. James's trial had been dominating the news for weeks, but nothing could have prepared me for the moment when the prosecutor stood up to deliver his opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, his voice resonating through the packed room, "what you're about to hear will shock you. James Blackwell, respected businessman and family man, is nothing more than a criminal mastermind." As he detailed James's crimes, the money laundering, the human trafficking, the years of deception, I felt the eyes of the courtroom upon me. Whispers rippled through the crowd. How could she not have known? What kind of wife was she? I gripped Sarah's hand tightly, fighting back tears. This was our lives being laid bare, our family's dirty laundry aired for all to see. When it was time for the defense to speak, James's lawyer painted a picture of a man driven to desperation by financial troubles, a loving father who only wanted to provide for his family. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. As the trial progressed, witness after witness took the stand. Business associates, bank managers, even some of the trafficking victims. Each testimony was another nail in James's coffin, another blow to our family's reputation. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. The prosecution calls Margaret Blackwell to the stand. On shaky legs, I made my way to the witness box. As I was sworn in, I caught James's eye. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, vulnerable, pleading. But then his mask of cool indifference slipped back into place. The prosecutor's questions were relentless. "Mrs. Blackwell, were you aware of your husband's illegal activities?" "No," I said firmly. "I had no idea. And yet you lived a life of luxury, expensive vacations, designer clothes. How did you think that was possible on your husband's reported income?" I felt a surge of anger. I trusted my husband. I believed in him. I never questioned. "Never questioned," the prosecutor interrupted, "or never wanted to know the truth." Before I could respond, James's lawyer objected, and the judge called for a recess. As I stepped down from the stand, I felt drained, exposed. Sarah met me outside the courtroom. "Mom, there's something you need to see." She led me to a small conference room where Daniel was waiting, his face grim. On the table was a stack of documents. "What is this?" I asked, my heart sinking. Daniel took a deep breath. "We found these in Dad's old office. They're transfer records to an account in your name." My world tilted on its axis. "What? No, that's impossible. I never—" Sarah placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Mom, it looks like Dad was funneling money through an account he set up in your name. If this comes out in court, the implications hit me like a tidal wave. I could be implicated in James's crimes. Everything I'd built since leaving him, my independence, my new life, could come crashing down." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I can make this all go away. Meet me at the old boathouse. Come alone. Jay." I showed the message to Sarah and Daniel, my mind racing. This could be a trap, but it could also be our only chance to clear my name. "Mom, you can't seriously be considering this," Sarah protested. I looked at my children, seeing the fear and concern in their eyes. But beneath that, I saw strength, my strength, reflected back at me. "I have to," I said, my resolve hardening. "This ends now, one way or another." As I walked out of the courthouse, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination, I knew I was walking into the most dangerous confrontation of my life. But for the first time in years, I felt truly in control. James had taken so much from us, our security, our trust, our peace of mind, but he wouldn't take our future. I would make sure of that, whatever the cost. The warm summer breeze rustled through the leaves as I stood on the porch of our new family home, watching Sarah and Daniel chatting animatedly in the garden. 3 years had passed since that fateful day at the boathouse, and the world had shifted on its axis more times than I could count. I closed my eyes, remembering the confrontation with James. His desperate pleas, his attempts to manipulate me one last time. But I wasn't the same woman he had controlled for decades. I had stood my ground, recorded every word, and walked away with the evidence that not only cleared my name, but ensured James would face the full consequences of his actions. The trial that followed was a media circus, but we weathered it together. Sarah's legal expertise, Daniel's unwavering support, and my newfound strength formed an unbreakable bond. We testified, we cried, we held each other up, and in the end, justice prevailed. James was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The man I had once loved, feared and hated in equal measure, was now just a shadow in our past. "Mom?" Sarah's voice pulled me from my reverie. "Are you okay?" I smiled, genuinely and without reservation. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. I'm happy." She wrapped an arm around me, and we watched as Daniel tended to the small vegetable garden he'd insisted on planting. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Sarah mused. "It is," I agreed. "But we did it together." The sound of a car pulling up caught our attention. It was Thomas, Sarah's fiancé, arriving for our weekly family dinner. As he got out of the car, I saw the gentle way Sarah's face lit up. It warmed my heart to see her in a healthy, loving relationship, something I had feared might never happen after the trauma we'd endured. Daniel jogged over to greet Thomas, soil still clinging to his hands. My environmentalist son had found his true calling, working to protect the very ecosystems his father had once exploited. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. As we gathered around the dinner table, laughter and conversation flowing freely, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. This was my revenge, not in destroying James, but in rebuilding what he had tried to tear down. Our family, stronger and more united than ever. "I have an announcement," Daniel said suddenly, a nervous smile playing on his lips. "I've been offered a position leading a major conservation project in Costa Rica." A chorus of congratulations erupted around the table. As Daniel explained the details of his new role, his eyes shining with excitement, I felt a bittersweet pang. My baby boy was spreading his wings, ready to fly. "That's wonderful news, honey," I said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. "Your father." I paused, the words catching in my throat. It was still hard sometimes to reconcile the man James had been with the criminal he'd become. "Your father would be proud," I finished softly, "not of what he did, but of who you've become in spite of it." Sarah raised her glass, to Daniel and to new beginnings. As we clinked glasses, I looked around at the faces of my children, no longer children, but strong, compassionate adults who had weathered the storm alongside me. I thought of the long journey we'd taken, the pain we'd endured, and the love that had seen us through. "To new beginnings," I echoed, "and to the family we've built." Later that night, as I stood in my bedroom, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was older, yes, with lines etched by both laughter and tears, but her eyes were clear, unburdened by the weight of secrets and fear. I thought of James, sitting in his prison cell, and felt nothing. No anger, no regret, no longing for what might have been. He had made his choices, and I had made mine. As I turned out the light and settled into bed, I smiled to myself. Tomorrow was a new day, full of possibilities, and for the first time in my life, I was truly, completely free. The lipstick smudge on Alex's collar glared at me like a neon sign, screaming infidelity. I held my breath, fingers trembling as I lifted the crisp, white shirt from the laundry basket. How many times had I washed away the evidence without realizing it? "Emma, where are you?" Alex's voice boomed from downstairs, snapping me back to reality. I quickly shoved the shirt back into the basket and plastered on a smile. "Coming, honey!" As I descended the stairs, my mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was I just being paranoid? Alex stood at the bottom, keys jingling impatiently in his hand. "There you are. I'm heading out for a bit. Don't wait up." "Wait, Alex," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I thought we were having dinner together tonight. I made your favorite." He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "Something came up at work. We'll do it another time." "But it's our anniversary," I whispered, the words barely audible. Alex paused, his hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I married 15 years ago. Then, just as quickly, his face hardened. "Oh, right. Sorry, Em. I completely forgot. We'll celebrate this weekend." "Okay?" I could respond. He was gone, leaving me alone with the echo of the slamming door. I sank onto the bottom step, my head in my hands. When had everything gone so wrong? We used to be happy, didn't we? The phone rang, startling me out of my spiral. I answered without checking the caller ID. "Emma, it's Peter. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Peter, my old friend from college. His warm voice was a balm to my frayed nerves. "No, not at all," I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "How are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I'm in town for a few days. I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee, catch up a bit?" I hesitated. Alex wouldn't like it if I met up with another man, even an old friend. But then again, Alex wasn't here, was he? You know what? That sounds great. When were you thinking? We made plans to meet the next afternoon at a little cafe downtown. As I hung up, I felt a tiny spark of excitement. It had been so long since I'd done anything for myself. The next day, I found myself sitting across from Peter, clutching a steaming latte. He looked good, a few more lines around his eyes perhaps, but still with that boyish grin I remembered. "So, Emma," he said, leaning forward, "and how's life treating you?" I opened my mouth to give my usual response. "Fine, everything's great." But something stopped me. Maybe it was the genuine concern in Peter's eyes, or maybe I was just tired of pretending. "Honestly, not great," I admitted. "Alex and we're having some problems." Peter's brow furrowed. "I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want to talk about it?" And suddenly, the floodgates opened. I told him everything. The emotional distance, the forgotten anniversaries, the lipstick on the collar. Peter listened without judgment, occasionally reaching out to squeeze my hand comfortingly. As I finished my story, wiping away a stray tear, Peter's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I have to take this. Work emergency. But listen, why don't we meet again tomorrow? Same time, same place?" I nodded, grateful for his understanding. As Peter hurried away, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe talking about my problems wasn't such a bad idea after all. Just then, my own phone chimed with a text. It was from Alex. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, a familiar ache settling in my chest. But this time, instead of resignation, I felt something else stirring. Determination. Things couldn't go on like this. Something had to change. As I left the cafe, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would confront Alex. One way or another, I would get answers. And then, well, then we'd see what happened next. I paced the living room, rehearsing the speech I'd prepared for Alex. My stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and determination. The front door clicked open, and I froze. "Emma?" Alex called out, his voice oddly cheerful. "You still up?" I stepped into the hallway, arms crossed. "We need to talk, Alex." His smile faltered. "Can it wait? I'm beat." "No," I said firmly, "it can't." We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the air thick with tension. I took a deep breath and launched into my prepared speech. "Alex, I know something's wrong. You're distant, you're never home, and yesterday, I found lipstick on your collar." His face remained impassive. "It's not what you think, Emma." "Then what is it?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're having an affair." Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm not having an affair, Emma, but I think we both know this marriage isn't working anymore." His words hit me like a physical blow. I'd expected denial, maybe even anger, but this calm admission of failure? It was worse than I'd imagined. "So that's it?" I whispered. "And you're just giving up?" "I'm being realistic," he countered. "We've been drifting apart for years. Maybe it's time we—" A wave of nausea suddenly washed over me. I bolted from the table, barely making it to the bathroom before emptying the contents of my stomach. As I rinsed my mouth, a thought struck me. When was my last period? With shaking hands, I counted back the days on my phone's calendar. "Oh my God," I breathed. I emerged from the bathroom to find Alex waiting, a look of concern on his face that I hadn't seen in months. "Emma, are you okay?" I met his eyes, my heart pounding. I think I might be pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, and finally, something that looked unsettlingly like disappointment. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice strained. I shook my head. "Not completely. I need to take a test." Alex nodded, already reaching for his keys. "I'll go to the pharmacy." As he left, I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. A baby. Could this be the thing that saved our marriage? Or was it too late? My phone buzzed with a text. It was Peter. "Hope everything's okay. Here if you need to talk." I stared at the message, guilt gnawing at me. I hadn't told Alex about meeting Peter. It hadn't seemed important at the time, but now... The front door opened, and Alex returned with a small paper bag. We sat in tense silence as I took the test, then waited for the results. Those 3 minutes felt like an eternity. When the timer on my phone chimed, I looked at Alex. "Together?" I asked. He nodded, following me into the bathroom. I picked up the test with trembling fingers and turned it over. 2 pink lines stared back at us. "It's positive," I whispered, a mix of joy and fear washing over me. I turned to Alex, expecting, what? Excitement? Happiness? Instead, I saw resignation in his eyes. "Emma," he said softly, A baby isn't going to fix us. His words cut deep, shattering the fragile hope I'd been clinging to. I stepped back, wrapping my arms protectively around my midsection. So what are you saying? I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. Alex ran a hand through his hair, looking everywhere but at me. I think we need some time apart to figure things out. I felt the world tilting beneath my feet. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when everything was about to change. You're leaving? I choked out. Now? He nodded, his expression a mask of forced calm. I'll stay with a friend for a while. We both need space to think. As Alex packed a bag, I stood in the doorway, watching the life I thought I knew crumble around me. When he finally left, the silence in the house was oppressive. I picked up my phone, my vision blurry with unshed tears. Without thinking, I dialed Peter's number. Emma? His concerned voice came through. What's wrong? I took a shaky breath. Peter, I need you. Peter arrived within 20 minutes, his face etched with concern. I collapsed into his arms, the dam of emotions finally breaking. He left, Peter. I sobbed. Alex left. Peter guided me to the couch, his arm around my shoulders. Start from the beginning, Emma. What happened? Through hiccuping breaths, I recounted the evening's events. The confrontation, the pregnancy test, Alex's cold reaction. Peter listened intently, his jaw tightening as I spoke. I'm so sorry, Emma. He said softly when I finished. You don't deserve this. I wiped my eyes, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. I don't know what to do, Peter. I'm pregnant, and my husband just walked out on me. Peter took my hand, his touch warm and comforting. You're not alone, Emma. I'm here for you, whatever you need. Our eyes met, and for a moment I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in years. But before I could dwell on it, my phone buzzed. It was Alex. I need to talk to you. His message read, Can you meet me at the cafe tomorrow at noon? I showed Peter the message, my stomach churning with anxiety. You don't have to go, Peter said, his voice tight. I do, I replied. I need answers. The next day I arrived at the cafe 5 minutes early, my nerves on edge. Alex was already there, looking haggard and sleep-deprived. Emma, he said as I sat down. Thanks for coming. I cut straight to the chase. Why did you leave, Alex? Is there someone else? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. No, there's no one else, but Emma, I can't do this anymore. The pregnancy, it just made me realize how trapped I feel. His words hit me like a slap. Trapped? We're having a baby, Alex. This should be the happiest moment of our lives. I don't want kids, Emma, he said flatly. I never have. I thought you knew that. I stared at him, speechless. How could I have missed something so fundamental about the man I married? So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. I think we should get a divorce. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Divorce? Just like that? It's for the best, he said, pushing the papers towards me. I've already signed. Take some time to look it over. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. You don't get to decide what's best for me or this baby, Alex. I thought our marriage meant something to you. Emma, please? But I was already walking away, tears blurring my vision. I stumbled out of the cafe, gasping for air. Suddenly, a strong hand steadied me. I looked up to see Peter, concern etched on his face. I'm sorry, he said. I couldn't let you face this alone. I waited outside, just in case. Without thinking, I threw my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. He held me tightly, murmuring soothing words. When I finally pulled back, I saw something in Peter's eyes that both thrilled and terrified me. Emma, he said softly, I know this isn't the right time, but I need to tell you something. I've been in love with you since college. Seeing you with Alex all these years, it's been torture. I stared at him, my mind reeling. Peter, But before I could finish, a wave of dizziness washed over me. The world tilted, and I felt myself falling. The last thing I heard was Peter's panicked voice calling my name as everything faded to black. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Peter sat beside me, his face pale with worry. What happened? I croaked. Peter squeezed my hand. You fainted. The doctors, Emma, they found something during the ultrasound. My heart raced. The baby? He shook his head, his eyes brimming with tears. It's not a baby, Emma. They found a tumor on your ovary. The world seemed to stop. In that moment, faced with a failing marriage, an unexpected confession of love, and now this devastating news, I realized my life would never be the same again. The stark white walls of the hospital room seemed to close in on me as I tried to process the doctor's words. A tumor, not a baby. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. "Miss Thompson," Dr. Patel said gently, "I know this is a lot to take in, but we need to discuss your options." I nodded numbly, grateful for Peter's steady presence beside me. His hand in mine was an anchor in the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "The tumor is sizable, but we caught it early," Dr. Patel continued. "With immediate treatment, your prognosis is good. However," I tensed, bracing myself for more bad news, "the treatment will likely affect your fertility. If you want to preserve the option of having children in the future, we need to act quickly." My mind reeled. Children. The future. Just days ago, I thought I was pregnant, and now... "I need some time," I whispered. Dr. Patel nodded sympathetically. "Of course, but please don't take too long. Time is of the essence." As she left, Peter turned to me, his eyes brimming with concern. "Emma, I'm here for you. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." His words, meant to comfort, only served to remind me of the complexity of our situation. Peter's confession of love hung between us unaddressed in the wake of my diagnosis. "I need to talk to Alex," I said suddenly. Peter's face fell, but he nodded. "Of course. Do you want me to call him?" I shook my head. "No, I need to do this myself." With trembling fingers, I dialed Alex's number. He answered on the third ring. "Emma? What's wrong?" I took a deep breath. "Alex, I'm in the hospital. It's not a baby. It's a tumor." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Alex spoke, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I'm so sorry, Emma. Do you want me to come?" "No," I said quickly. I needed you to know. And Alex, I'm signing the divorce papers." I ended the call before he could respond, for a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my life. Peter watched me carefully. "Are you okay?" I managed a small smile. "No, but I will be." The next few days passed in a blur of tests, consultations, and difficult decisions. I opted for fertility preservation before starting treatment, clinging to the hope of a future I wasn't sure I'd have. On the day of my surgery, I found myself sharing a room with an elderly woman named Margaret. She had a kind face and a no-nonsense attitude that I immediately appreciated. "First time?" she asked, as I nervously fiddled with my hospital gown. I nodded. "You'll be fine, dear," she said confidently. "I've been through this rodeo 3 times now. The trick is to focus on what you're fighting for." Her words struck a chord. What was I fighting for? As if on cue, Peter appeared in the doorway, his arms full of flowers. "Ready for this?" he asked, his smile not quite hiding his worry. Looking at him, I suddenly knew the answer to Margaret's implied question. I was fighting for a second chance, at life, at love, at happiness. "I'm ready," I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. As the nurses came to wheel me to surgery, I caught Peter's hand. "Peter, when this is over, I think we need to talk about us." His eyes widened, hope flickering across his face. "Us?" I nodded, squeezing his hand. "Us." As they rolled me away, I caught a glimpse of Margaret giving me a knowing wink. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took hold was Peter's voice, soft and sure. "I'll be here when you wake up, Emma. I promise." And in that moment, facing the unknown, I made a promise to myself. Whatever happened, I would fight. For my life, for love, for the future I suddenly realized I desperately wanted. With Peter, with a family of our own. As I drifted off, I felt stronger than I had in years. The road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to face whatever came next, head on and heart open. 5 years. It's hard to believe how much can change in such a short time. As I stand in our sun-drenched kitchen, watching Peter flip pancakes while our 4-year-old daughter Jackie giggles at the table, I'm struck by a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly brings me to my tears. "Mommy, look! Daddy made a Mickey Mouse pancake!" Jackie exclaims, her blue eyes, so like Peter's, sparkling with delight. I ruffle her curly hair, marveling at how perfectly she blends our features. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Daddy's quite the artist, isn't he?" Peter winks at me over his shoulder, and my heart swells. After everything we've been through, my cancer, the grueling treatments, the uncertain future, here we are, living a life I once thought impossible. "So, what's the plan for today?" Peter asked, sliding a plate of pancakes in front of me. "Well, I have that follow-up appointment at the hospital. I remind him, trying to keep my voice light. Even after 5 years of clean scans, these checkups still fill me with anxiety. Peter's hand finds mine across the table, squeezing gently. Want me to come with you? I shake my head. No, you have that big presentation today. I'll be fine. But as I sit in the sterile waiting room 2 hours later, I'm not so sure. The familiar fear creeps in, whispering worst-case scenarios. What if the cancer's back? What if this time we're not so lucky? Emma Thompson. A nurse calls, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. Dr. Patel greets me with a warm smile, but there's something in her eyes that sets my nerves on edge. How are you feeling, Emma? She asks as I settle into the chair across from her desk. Good, I say, perhaps a bit too quickly. Great, actually. She nods, her expression turning serious. Emma, I've looked over your latest scans, and there's something we need to discuss. My heart plummets. This can't be happening. Not now, not when everything is finally perfect. We've detected a small mass on your remaining ovary, Dr. Patel says gently. The world seems to tilt on its axis. Is it? I can't bring myself to say the word. We won't know for certain until we do a biopsy, she explains. But given your history, we need to take this seriously. I nod numbly, barely hearing as she outlines the next steps. All I can think about is Peter and Jackie. How will I tell them? How can I put them through this again? As I leave the hospital, my phone buzzes with a text from Peter. How'd it go? Everything okay? I stare at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keys. I should tell him. He deserves to know, but the thought of seeing the worry in his eyes, of watching our perfect life crumble again. I can't bear it. All clear, I type back, hating myself for the lie even as I hit send. See you at home. Love you. The guilt gnaws at me as I drive home, warring with the fear that threatens to overwhelm me. I know I should be honest, should lean on Peter's strength like I did before, but a small, selfish part of me wants to protect this happiness we've built, even if just for a little while longer. As I pull into our driveway, I see Jackie playing in the front yard, her laughter carrying on the warm summer breeze. Peter waves from the porch, his smile so full of love and trust that it breaks my heart. In that moment, I make a decision. I won't tell them. Not yet. I'll go through the biopsy alone, carry this burden myself until I know for sure. It's not fair to them, I know, but the thought of watching the light fade from their eyes is more than I can bear. Mommy's home! Jackie shrieks, running towards me with open arms. I scoop her up, holding her close and breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. Peter joins us, wrapping us both in a warm embrace. Everything okay? He murmurs into my ear. I force a smile, burying my face in Jackie's curls to hide the tears that threaten to fall. Everything's perfect, I lie, my voice barely above a whisper. And as we stand there, a picture-perfect family, in the fading afternoon light, I silently pray that my deception won't be the thing that finally tears us apart. The soft glow of candlelight danced across Peter's face as he raised his glass. To 5 wonderful years, he said, his eyes shining with love, and to many more. I clinked my glass against his, forcing a smile. The weight of my secret pressed down on me, threatening to shatter this perfect moment. It had been 2 weeks since my appointment, and the biopsy results were due any day now. Every ring of my phone sent my heart racing. You okay, Em? Peter asked, his brow furrowing with concern. You seem distracted. I opened my mouth to confess everything, but the words caught in my throat. I'm fine, I lied, hating myself for it. Just thinking about how lucky we are. Peter reached across the table, taking my hand in his. We are lucky. You, me, Jackie. We're a team, remember? Nothing can break us apart. His words, meant to comfort, only twisted the knife of guilt deeper. I was about to respond when a familiar voice cut through the restaurant's ambient noise. Emma, is that you? I froze, my blood turning to ice. Slowly, I turned to face a ghost from my past. Alex. He stood there, looking older but still handsome, a mix of surprise and something else, regret, on his face. Alex, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? He gestured vaguely. Business dinner. I didn't expect to see you. Peter's hand tightened around mine, a silent show of support. Alex, he said, his voice cool but polite. It's been a long time. Alex nodded, his eyes darting between us. Then his gaze landed on something behind me, and his expression changed. Is that? I turned to see Jackie approaching our table, her face lighting up as she saw us. Mommy, Daddy, I finished my homework. Can I have dessert now? The color drained from Alex's face. She's yours? He asked, his voice strangled. In that moment I saw the wheels turning in his head, the mental math he was doing, and I realized with horror what he must be thinking. Alex, it's not. I started, but he cut me off. How could you keep this from me? He demanded, his voice rising. All these years, and you never told me I had a daughter? The restaurant fell silent, all eyes turning to our table. Jackie looked between us, confusion and fear clouding her young face. Mommy? Who's that man? Peter stood up, placing himself between Alex and Jackie. I think you need to leave, he said firmly. But Alex wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on Jackie, a storm of emotions playing across his face. She has my eyes, he whispered. No, Alex. You don't understand, I pleaded, but it was too late. He pushed past Peter, reaching for Jackie. Come here, sweetheart. I'm your real father. Jackie screamed, shrinking back. Peter grabbed Alex's arm, his face thunderous. That's enough. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Patrons gasped and murmured. Waiters rushed towards us, and through it all, Jackie's sobs pierced my heart. I stood there, paralyzed by the nightmare unfolding before me. This was my fault. My lies, my secrets. They had led to this moment. As security guards appeared, pulling Alex away, his words echoed through the restaurant. She's my daughter. Emma, how could you do this to me? I watched as they dragged him out, his accusations ringing in my ears. Peter held a trembling Jackie, whispering soothing words. And me? I stood there, the weight of my deceptions crushing me. In that moment, as the world seemed to crumble around me, my phone buzzed. With shaking hands, I pulled it out to see a message from Dr. Patel. Emma, we have your results. Please call us as soon as possible. I stared at the screen, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. Of course, this would happen now when everything was falling apart. As Peter turned to me, his eyes filled with questions and hurt, I realized I had reached a crossroads. No more lies, no more secrets. It was time to face the truth, no matter the cost. Taking a deep breath, I prepared to shatter the life we had built, praying that somehow we'd find a way to pick up the pieces. The restaurant was in chaos. Jackie's sobs pierced the air as Peter held her close, shielding her from Alex's wild-eyed gaze. I stood frozen, my phone clutched in my hand, Dr. Patel's message burning into my vision. Emma! Alex's voice cut through the din. You can't keep my daughter from me. Peter's face hardened. She's not your daughter, Alex. Leave, now. But Alex wasn't listening. He lunged forward, reaching for Jackie. Peter stepped back, but Alex's fingers grazed Jackie's arm. She screamed, a sound that shattered my paralysis. Don't touch her, I shouted, stepping between them. Suddenly a large figure appeared beside us. Is there a problem here? A deep voice rumbled. I turned to see a muscular man in his mid-40s, his eyes sharp and assessing the situation. Recognition flashed across Peter's face. Richard? Peter said, relief evident in his voice. Thank God. This man is harassing my family. Richard's jaw set as he turned to Alex. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. Alex's face contorted with rage. You don't understand. That's my daughter. Before anyone could react, Alex shoved past Richard, making another grab for Jackie. In a blur of motion, Richard caught Alex's arm, twisting it behind his back. That's enough, Richard growled. You're coming with me. As Richard began to lead Alex away, I saw a dangerous glint in my ex-husband's eye. Time seemed to slow as Alex wrenched free, his hand disappearing into his jacket. Alex, I started, but it was too late. The glint of metal made my heart stop. A knife! Where had he gotten a knife? Jackie, I screamed, lunging forward. Everything happened in a fraction of a second. Richard tackled Alex to the ground, the knife clattering across the floor. Peter shielded Jackie with his body. And I stood there, my world tilting on its axis, as security guards swarmed in, restraining Alex. The adrenaline drained from my body. I sank to my knees, trembling uncontrollably. Emma? Peter's voice sounded far away. Emma, are you okay? I looked up at him, at Jackie's tear-stained face, and something inside me broke. The weight of my lies, the fear of my diagnosis, the shock of Alex's actions, it all came crashing down. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I'm so sorry. I've ruined everything. Peter knelt beside me, confusion etched on his face. Emma, what are you talking about? I took a shaky breath, knowing that the next words out of my mouth would change everything. The tumor, it's back, and I didn't tell you. The color drained from Peter's face. What? I was scared. I whispered. I didn't want to hurt you and Jackie. I thought I could handle it alone. Peter's expression cycled through shock, hurt, and finally a deep sadness that broke my heart. Emma, we're a team. You should have told me. As the police arrived to take statements, the gravity of the situation settled over us. Alex was being led away in handcuffs, shouting about paternity tests and lawyers. Richard stood nearby, giving his account to an officer. And we sat there on the floor, our perfect life in shambles. My phone buzzed again. Dr. Patel, no doubt wondering why I hadn't called back. The future I'd been avoiding loomed before me. More tests, more treatments, more uncertainty. What do we do now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Peter took a deep breath, squeezing Jackie's hand. We face it together, all of it. As we sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of our anniversary dinner, I realized we'd reached a turning point. The lies, the secrets, the past we thought we'd left behind, it had all caught up with us, and now we had to decide, would we let it tear us apart, or would we find the strength to rebuild? Looking into Peter's eyes, I saw a flicker of the love that had brought us together, and in that moment, I made a silent vow. No more secrets, no more lies. Whatever came next, we'd face it as a family. But as the police approached to take our statements, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The sterile walls of the police station seemed to close in on me as I sat across from Alex, his hands cuffed to the table. Peter stood in the corner, his presence a silent pillar of strength. Why, Alex? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why did you do this? Alex's eyes, once so familiar, now seemed like those of a stranger. You took my child from me, Emma. What did you expect? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. Jackie isn't your daughter, Alex. She never was. His face contorted in confusion, then anger. What are you talking about? You were pregnant when we separated. I thought I was. I admitted, but it wasn't a baby. It was a tumor. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the wheels turning in Alex's mind, piecing together the past. So all this time he trailed off, the fight draining from his body. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, I said softly. But you had already left. You made it clear you didn't want children. Alex slumped in his chair, the reality of his actions crashing down on him. I've made a terrible mistake, haven't I? I nodded, feeling a strange mix of pity and relief. Yes, you have. As we left the station, Peter wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Are you okay? He asked. I leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. I will be. We have bigger battles to face now. The next few weeks passed in a blur of hospital visits and legal meetings. Alex's actions had consequences. He was facing charges for assault and endangering a minor. But as I sat in Dr. Patel's office, waiting for my latest test results, those problems seemed distant. The tumor has shrunk significantly, Dr. Patel said, a smile breaking across her face. The treatment is working, Emma. Tears of relief sprang to my eyes as Peter squeezed my hand. So, what's next? He asked. We continue the treatment, Dr. Patel replied. But I'm optimistic. You're a fighter, Emma. As we left the hospital, I felt lighter than I had in months. The sun seemed brighter, the air fresher. We picked up Jackie from school, her face lighting up as she saw us. Mommy, Daddy, can we get ice cream? Peter laughed, scooping her up. I think we can manage that, Princess. Sitting in the ice cream parlor, watching Peter and Jackie giggle over their sundaes, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. We had been through so much, divorce, cancer, Alex's attack, but here we were, still standing, still a family. Penny for your thoughts? Peter asked, noticing my contemplative mood. I smiled, reaching out to take his hand. I was just thinking about how lucky I am, how lucky we all are. Peter's eyes softened. We've been through a lot, Em, but we're stronger for it. Jackie looked up from her ice cream, her face serious. Are you sick again, Mommy? I pulled her into a hug, marveling at her perceptiveness. I am, sweetheart, but the doctors are helping me get better, and I have you and Daddy to help me too. We're a team, Jackie said solemnly, echoing Peter's words from that fateful night at the restaurant. That's right, Peter agreed, and teams stick together, no matter what. As we left the ice cream parlor, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still treatments to endure, legal battles to face, and emotional scars to heal. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. We had weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Alex was a chapter of my life that had finally closed, and while the pain of those years would always be a part of me, it no longer defined me. Looking at Peter and Jackie, I saw my future, bright, full of love, and brimming with possibilities. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them as we'd faced everything else, together. As we walked home in the fading sunlight, I silently thanked the twists of fate that had brought me here. To this moment, to this family, to this love. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, completely whole. The spaghetti slipped from my fork, splattering red sauce across the pristine white tablecloth. I stared at the stain, my appetite vanishing as quickly as my husband's affection seemed to have. "For God's sake, Mia," Adam snapped, his blue eyes flashing with irritation. "Can't you eat without making a mess?" I blinked, taken aback by the harshness in his voice. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Save it," he cut me off, dabbing at his shirt with a napkin. "This is why I can't take you anywhere nice anymore." Our children, Laura and David, exchanged uncomfortable glances across the table. Laura, ever the peacemaker at 22, cleared her throat. "Dad, it was just an accident. No big deal, right?" Adam's jaw clenched. "Your mother should know better by now. She's not a child." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and confusion. This wasn't like Adam at all. Sure, we'd had our ups and downs over the years, but he'd never spoken to me with such disdain before, especially not in front of the kids. David, my sensitive 17-year-old, pushed his chair back abruptly. "I'm not hungry anymore," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. "Sit down," Adam ordered. "We're having a family dinner, and you'll stay until we're finished." I found my voice at last. "Adam, what's gotten into you? It was an accident, and you're acting like I committed a crime." He fixed me with a cold stare. "Maybe if you put as much effort into your cooking as you do into making excuses, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Laura gasped. "Dad," I felt as though I'd been slapped. Adam had always praised my cooking, even on my off days. This sudden change in attitude was more than just a bad mood. Something was seriously wrong. "I think we're all done here," I said quietly, standing up. "Kids, why don't you go watch TV in the living room? Your father and I need to talk." As soon as Laura and David left, I turned to Adam. "What the hell is going on with you?" He leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "Nothing's going on, Mia. I'm just tired of pretending everything's fine when it's clearly not." "Pretending?" I echoed, my heart racing. "What are you talking about?" Adam stood up, towering over me. "Face it, Mia. You've let yourself go. The house is a mess. Your cooking is subpar at best, and you've become boring." He spat out the last word like it was poison. I felt as though the floor was tilting beneath my feet. "Adam, where is this coming from? If you're unhappy, we can talk about it. We can go to counseling, work on—" He laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound that sent chills down my spine. "Counseling? Please. It's too late for that, Mia. I've found someone who actually knows how to keep a man interested." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of the table for support. You're having an affair?" Adam's eyes gleamed with a cruel satisfaction I'd never seen before. "Affairs are for cowards who can't commit. I'm leaving you, Mia. I've found someone who makes me feel alive again." I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, and I felt like I might be sick. "How long?" I managed to choke out. "Long enough to know it's the real deal," he replied, grabbing his jacket from the back of his chair. "I'll be back for my things tomorrow. Don't bother trying to change my mind. It's over." As Adam strode towards the front door, I found myself following him, desperation clawing at my insides. "Adam, please," I begged. "Think about the kids. We can work this out. I know we can." He paused with his hand on the doorknob, turning to face me one last time. "The kids will understand eventually. They deserve to see their father happy." With that, he was gone, leaving me standing in the doorway, my world crumbling around me. I could hear Laura and David's muffled voices from the living room, no doubt wondering what was happening. How was I going to tell them? How could I possibly explain that their father just walked out on us without a backward glance? As I sank to the floor, tears finally spilling down my cheeks, one thought burned through the fog of shock and pain. "This isn't over, Adam." Not by a long shot. The silence in our house was deafening. It had been a week since Adam's dramatic exit, and the tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. I stood at the kitchen counter, mechanically spreading peanut butter on bread for David's lunch, when Laura's voice startled me. "Mom, we need to talk about Dad." I turned to face my daughter, her eyes red-rimmed from nights of crying. "What about him, sweetheart?" Laura twisted her hands nervously. He wants us to meet someone, a woman named Kate." The knife clattered to the floor, splattering peanut butter across the tiles. "He what?" "I'm sorry, Mom," Laura whispered. "I didn't want to upset you, but David and I thought you should know." I gripped the counter, my knuckles turning white. "When did he tell you this?" "Last night. He called us both separately." Laura's voice cracked. "Mom, I don't want to meet her. I don't want any of this." I pulled my daughter into a fierce hug, feeling her body shake with sobs. "You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, Laura. I promise." Just then, David shuffled into the kitchen, his eyes downcast. "I guess Laura told you," he muttered. I reached out to include him in our embrace, but he flinched away. "David, honey, talk to me. How are you feeling about all this?" His head snapped up, eyes blazing with anger. "How am I feeling? I'm feeling like Dad's a lying, cheating bastard who doesn't give a damn about any of us." "David," Laura gasped. "No, let him speak," I said quietly. "We all need to be honest about our feelings right now." David's fists clenched at his sides. "I hate him, Mom. I hate what he's doing to us, and I hate that he expects us to play happy families with his whore." The venom in his voice shocked me, but before I could respond, the doorbell rang. We all froze, staring at each other in confusion. "I'll get it," I said, smoothing down my hair and taking a deep breath. I opened the door to find Adam standing there, looking annoyingly put together in a crisp suit. "Mia," he said coolly, "we need to talk." "About what?" I snapped. "About how you're trying to force our children to meet your mistress?" Adam's eyes narrowed. "Kate is not my mistress. She's my partner, and yes, I want our kids to meet her. It's time to move forward." I laughed bitterly. "Move forward? It's been a week, Adam. A week since you blew up our entire lives." "Mom," David's voice came from behind me. "What's he doing here?" Adam tried to peer around me. "David, son, don't call me that," David shouted, pushing past me to confront his father. "You don't get to walk out on us and then act like everything's normal." Laura appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Dad, please just go. We're not ready for this." I saw a flicker of pain cross Adam's face, quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but Kate and I are starting a life together, and I want you to be part of it." "A life together?" I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. "Adam, what aren't you telling us?" He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "Kate's pregnant. We're having a baby." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I heard Laura's sharp intake of breath and David's muttered curse. "Get out," I whispered, my voice trembling with rage. "Get out of our house, Adam. Now." He opened his mouth to argue, but something in my expression must have warned him off. With a final, regretful look at our children, he turned and walked away. I slammed the door shut, leaning against it as my legs threatened to give way. Laura and David stood frozen, shock etched on their young faces. "Mom?" Laura's voice was small, childlike. "What do we do now?" I straightened up, squaring my shoulders. "Now, we fight. Your father might think he can replace us with his new family, but he's about to learn how wrong he is." As I pulled my children close, a steely resolve settled over me. Adam had no idea what he'd unleashed. This war was just beginning, and I intended to win. I never thought I'd find myself skulking around the parking lot of a seedy motel, but desperate times call for desperate measures. My hands shook as I gripped my phone, ready to document whatever sordid scene awaited me. "Mom, are you sure about this?" Laura's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Maybe we should just go home." "I need to know, sweetheart," I whispered back. "I need to see her face." Just then, a sleek black car pulled into the lot. My heart raced as Adam stepped out, looking furtively around before opening the passenger door. A leggy blonde emerged, her hand resting possessively on my husband's arm. I raised my phone, zooming in as they walked towards a room. The woman turned, and I got my first clear look at Kate's face. She was beautiful, yes, but there was a hardness to her features that made my skin crawl. "Oh my God," Laura gasped in my ear. Mom, that's Mrs. Holloway, Ethan's mom from my high school." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only was Adam cheating, but he was doing it with someone from our community, someone our children knew. I was so stunned that I almost missed the third person exiting the car. A lanky teenage boy, his face a mirror image of his mother's, sauntered after Adam and Kate. "Ethan," I breathed, pieces falling into place. "Laura, honey, I think we've stumbled onto something bigger than we realized." Before Laura could respond, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I whirled around, coming face to face with the security guard. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises," he said gruffly. I stammered, trying to hide my phone. The guard's eyes narrowed. "Were you taking pictures? That's a violation of our guests' privacy." "No, Mom?" David's voice rang out across the parking lot. I turned to see my son striding towards us, his face a mask of fury. "What the hell is going on?" The commotion drew attention from the motel room. The door opened, and Adam stepped out, his eyes widening in shock as he took in the scene. "Mia?" he called, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. "What are you doing here?" I straightened my spine, meeting his gaze defiantly. "I could ask you the same thing, Adam. Planning a little family getaway with your mistress and her son?" Kate appeared in the doorway, her arms snaking around Adam's waist. "Is this your ex?" she purred. "Honey, I thought you said she wouldn't be a problem." "Ex?" I sputtered. "We're still very much married, you homewrecker." David lunged forward, his fists clenched. "You bastard!" he shouted at Adam. "How could you do this to us?" The security guard stepped between us, his hand on his radio. "That's enough. All of you, clear out now, or I'm calling the police." Adam held up his hands placatingly. "There's no need for that. We're leaving." He turned to Kate and Ethan. "Get in the car, now." As they hurried away, Adam approached me, his voice low and menacing. "This isn't over, Mia. You had no right to come here and make a scene." I laughed bitterly. "No right? You destroyed our family, Adam. You don't get to dictate my rights anymore." He leaned in close, his breath hot on my ear. "Watch yourself." "What? You have no idea what you're dealing with." With that, he strode off, leaving me trembling with a mixture of rage and fear. David put his arm around me, guiding me towards our car. "Mom, what did he say to you?" I shook my head, unable to speak. As we drove away, Laura's voice came through the earpiece, small and frightened. "Mom, are you okay? What happened?" I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I think we've just scratched the surface of whatever Adam's involved in. And I'm not stopping until I uncover the truth, no matter how ugly it might be." As we pulled onto the highway, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives had just taken a dangerous turn. Whatever game Adam was playing, the stakes were higher than I could have imagined. And I was determined to win, for my children's sake and my own. I stared at the stack of papers on my kitchen table, each one a damning piece of evidence against Adam. Bank statements, phone records, even surveillance photos, they all painted a picture of a man living a double life. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, dialing the number I'd been avoiding for days. "Mia?" Elaine's voice was warm with concern. "How are you holding up?" I took a shaky breath. "I need your help, Elaine. It's worse than we thought." An hour later, Elaine sat across from me, her eyes wide as she pored over the documents. "Oh, Mia," she whispered, I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll help me nail this bastard to the wall," I replied, surprised by the venom in my own voice. Elaine reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Of course I will. But Mia, have you considered what this might do to Laura and David? They're already struggling." As if on cue, the front door slammed, and David stormed into the kitchen. His eyes were red-rimmed, his clothes disheveled. "Mom," he slurred, "I need to talk to you." My heart sank as I realized my son was drunk. "David, what happened? Where's Laura?" He stumbled, catching himself on the counter. "She's fine. She's with her boyfriend. But me, I'm not fine, Mom. I ran into Dad today." Elaine stood up, gathering the papers quickly. "I should go. Call me later, Mia." As soon as she left, I turned to David. "What do you mean you ran into Dad? Where?" David laughed bitterly. "At the jewelry store. He was buying a ring, Mom. A fucking engagement ring for that homewrecker." The room spun, and I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. An engagement ring? But we're not even divorced yet. "Yeah, well, I guess he doesn't care about that," David spat. "He saw me there, you know. Tried to explain, said he was going to tell us soon, as if that makes it okay." I pulled David into a hug, feeling his body shake with sobs. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Just then my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, but the message made my blood run cold. Back off, Mia. You have no idea what you're dealing with. For your kid's sake, let it go. I showed the text to David, watching his face contort with rage. That's it, he growled. I'm done playing nice. We need to destroy him, Mom. David, no, I said firmly. We're not stooping to his level. We're going to do this the right way. He pulled away from me, his eyes blazing. The right way? Are you kidding me? After everything he's done? Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. We both froze, staring at each other in confusion. I approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. My heart nearly stopped. It was Kate. I opened the door slowly, steeling myself. What are you doing here? Kate's perfect makeup couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. Mia, please, I need your help. Adam, he's not who you think he is. He's not who I thought he was either. David appeared behind me, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, this should be good. What? Did Daddy dearest break your heart too? Kate flinched. It's not like that. Please, just hear me out. Adam's involved in something dangerous. I think he might hurt someone. My mind raced. Adam's threatening words at the motel echoing in my ears. I looked at David, saw the conflict on his face, then back at Kate. In that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could turn Kate away, continue my plan for revenge, and potentially put my family at risk. Or I could listen, possibly uncover the truth, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to protect everyone I loved. Taking a deep breath, I stepped aside. Come in, Kate. Tell us everything. As she crossed the threshold, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were about to change irrevocably. Whatever Adam was involved in, whatever secrets Kate was about to reveal, I knew one thing for certain. There was no turning back now. The living room felt suffocating as Kate's words hung in the air. My mind reeled, trying to process the bombshell she'd just dropped. Money laundering? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Adam's involved in money laundering? Kate nodded, her eyes darting nervously between David and me. It's worse than that, Mia. He's in deep with some dangerous people. I didn't know at first, I swear, but when I found out... She trailed off, her hands shaking. David paced the room, his earlier drunkenness seemingly evaporated. This is insane. Dad's a lot of things, but a criminal? I don't buy it. I wanted to agree with him, to dismiss Kate's claims as lies from a desperate woman. But deep down, a part of me knew it made sense. The unexplained late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden influx of cash. Why are you telling us this now? I asked Kate, my voice steadier than I felt. She took a deep breath. Because I'm scared, Mia. For myself, for Ethan, and for your family too. Adam's not the man I thought he was. He's become cold, calculating. When I confronted him about the illegal activities, he threatened me. Said if I breathed a word to anyone, he'd make sure Ethan and I disappeared. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation settling over us like a heavy blanket. I looked at David, saw the conflict and fear in his eyes, and knew I had to be strong for both my children. We need to call Laura, I said, reaching for my phone. She needs to hear this too. As if on cue, the front door burst open, and Laura stumbled in, her face streaked with tears. Mom, she cried. Dad's here, he's outside, and he's furious. My heart raced as I rushed to the window. Sure enough, Adam's car was parked haphazardly in the driveway, and he was storming towards the house. Kate, take David and Laura upstairs, I ordered, surprising myself with the authority in my voice. Lock yourselves in the bedroom, and don't come out until I say it's safe. Mom, no way, David protested. I'm not leaving you alone with him. I cupped his face in my hands. David, listen to me. Your father may be a lot of things, but he won't hurt me. I need you to protect your sister and Kate. Can you do that for me? He nodded reluctantly, ushering the others upstairs just as Adam pounded on the door. I took a deep breath, steeling myself before opening it. Adam burst in, his face contorted with rage. Where is she? He snarled. Where's Kate? She's not here, Adam, I lied smoothly. What's going on? Why are you so worked up? He grabbed my arm, his grip painfully tight. Don't play dumb with me, Mia. I know she came here. What did she tell you? I wrenched my arm free, anger overriding my fear. She told us everything, Adam. The money laundering, the threats. How could you do this to our family? Adam's face paled, then flushed with fury. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Mia. This is bigger than you, bigger than all of us. If you know what's good for you and the kids, you'll forget everything Kate said and stay out of it." "Or what?" I challenged, my voice rising. "You'll make us disappear too?" For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I once loved in Adam's eyes, regret, fear, maybe even a hint of shame, but it vanished quickly, replaced by cold determination. "This is your last warning, Mia," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Stay out of my business, or I can't guarantee your safety. Any of you." As he turned to leave, I called out, "It's too late, Adam. I've already contacted a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce." He froze, his hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, he said, "You have no idea what you've just done." The door slammed behind him and I sank to the floor, my legs no longer able to support me. Upstairs, I could hear muffled sobs and whispered conversations. In that moment, I knew our lives would never be the same. Adam had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. As I climbed the stairs to comfort my children and face an uncertain future, one thought burned in my mind. I would protect my family, no matter the cost. 6 months. It felt like a lifetime since Adam had walked out, leaving our family in shambles. I'd spent every waking moment rebuilding our lives, piece by painstaking piece. The divorce proceedings were underway, and I'd managed to secure a restraining order against Adam after his threats. Life was far from perfect, but we were surviving. Until today. The pounding on the front door jolted me awake. I stumbled downstairs, my heart racing as I peered through the peephole. Adam stood there, his face a mask of fury, with Kate and a sullen-looking Ethan behind him. "Open the damn door, Mia," Adam shouted. "We need to talk." I steeled myself, opening the door just enough to speak through the gap. "You're violating the restraining order, Adam. Leave now or I'm calling the police." He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Police? You think I'm afraid of the police? Open the door or I'll break it down." "Mom?" Laura's voice came from behind me, trembling with fear. "What's going on?" I turned to see both my children at the foot of the stairs, their faces pale with shock. Before I could respond, Adam shoved the door open, sending me stumbling backward. "This is our house now," he snarled, gesturing to Kate and Ethan. "Pack your bags, you're leaving." David stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Like hell we are. This is our home, Dad. You can't just—" Adam's hand shot out, grabbing David by the collar. "I can do whatever I want, boy. I made this family, and I can break it just as easily." "Let him go," I screamed, clawing at Adam's arm. He shoved me away, and I crashed into the side table, sending a vase shattering to the floor. Laura rushed to help me up, while Kate stood in the doorway, her face a mixture of triumph and unease. Ethan hung back, looking like he wanted to be anywhere but here. As I struggled to my feet, a wave of dizziness washed over me. The room spun, and I clutched at Laura for support. "Mom?" she cried, her voice sounding far away. "Mom, what's wrong?" I tried to focus, to push through the fog descending on my mind. I had to protect my children, had to stand up to Adam, but my body was betraying me, my legs giving way beneath me. "What's the matter, Mia?" Adam sneered. "Can't handle the pressure?" As I sank to the floor, I saw a flicker of concern cross his face. Good, he didn't know. None of them knew. "You want to know what's wrong, Adam?" I managed to gasp out. "I'm dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave me 6 months to live. 3 months ago." The room fell silent, save for Laura's choked sob. Adam's face drained of color, his grip on David loosening. "You're lying," Kate whispered, but there was doubt in her voice. I laughed weakly. "Why would I lie about this? You want the house so badly, Adam? Fine. Take it, but know that every moment you spend here will be haunted by the memory of the family you destroyed, the wife you left to die alone." Adam staggered back as if I'd struck him. "Mia, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered?" I spat. "You made your choice, Adam. You chose your new family over us. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted." David knelt beside me, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, why didn't you tell us?" I reached up to cup his cheek. "I wanted to protect you, to give you time to heal without worrying about me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart." As my vision began to blur, I saw Adam move towards me, his face a mask of anguish and regret. But it was too late. The damage was done, and there was no going back. My last conscious thought before darkness claimed me was a silent prayer. Let my children find the strength to forgive, even if I couldn't. Let them build a life free from the bitterness that had consumed their father and me. and as the world faded away, I felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened next, I knew my fight was finally over. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room buzzed overhead as I slowly regained consciousness. The steady beep of monitors filled the air, a grim reminder of my fragile state. As my eyes adjusted, I saw Laura and David huddled together on a small couch, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. "Mom?" Laura's voice cracked as she noticed my stirring. "You're awake." David rushed to my bedside, grasping my hand. "We were so scared, Mom," the doctors said. I squeezed his hand weakly. "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." Before they could respond, the door burst open. Adam strode in, his face a storm of emotions, anger, fear, and something that looked suspiciously like guilt. "What the hell were you thinking, Mia?" he demanded. "Keeping your condition a secret? Do you have any idea what you've put the kids through?" I laughed bitterly, wincing at the pain it caused. "Oh, that's rich coming from you, Adam. Suddenly you care about what the kids are going through?" Laura stepped between us. "Stop it, both of you. This isn't helping anyone." Just then, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Kate's voice rang out, shrill and panicked. "You can't do this. We haven't done anything wrong." 2 police officers entered the room, their faces grim. "Adam Thompson," one of them asked, "we need you to come with us." Adam's face drained of color. "What's going on?" The officer produced a warrant. "We have evidence linking you to a major money laundering operation. You're under arrest." The room exploded into chaos. David lunged at Adam, shouting accusations. Laura tried to hold him back, tears streaming down her face. And through it all, I lay there, feeling as though I was watching a movie of someone else's life falling apart. As the officers handcuffed Adam, Kate burst into the room, Ethan trailing behind her. "This is all your fault," she screamed at me. "You couldn't just let us be happy, could you?" I found strength I didn't know I had, pushing myself up in the bed. "Happy? You call destroying a family happy? You're both delusional." Adam turned to me, his eyes pleading. "Mia, please, you have to tell them this is a mistake. I did it for us, for our family." The irony of his words hit me like a physical blow. "Our family? You gave up the right to call us that when you walked out on us, Adam." As the officers led Adam away, Kate collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Ethan stood awkwardly by the door, just looking lost and confused. In that moment, watching the destruction of not one but 2 families, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I turned to Laura and David, who stood shell-shocked by my bedside. "Listen to me," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "What your father did was wrong, but don't let his mistakes define you. You are both so much stronger than this." David's face crumpled. "But Mom, what about you? We can't lose you too." I reached out, pulling both my children close. "I'm still here, and I'm going to fight this with everything I have. But I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Laura whispered. "Promise me you'll live your lives fully without bitterness or regret. Don't let what happened here poison your hearts." As they nodded, tears streaming down their faces, I felt a weight lift from my chest. Whatever time I had left, I would spend it healing the wounds that had been inflicted on my family. I looked over at Kate and Ethan, still reeling from the shock of Adam's arrest. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of compassion. "You 2 should go home," I said softly. "There's nothing left for you here." As they left, I settled back against my pillows, exhausted but oddly at peace. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with legal battles, medical treatments, and emotional healing, but for the first time in months I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. Our story wasn't over yet. And I intended to make every moment count. The courtroom fell silent as I took my seat at the witness stand. My eyes swept across the room, taking in the faces that had become so familiar over the past year. Laura and David, their eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Elaine, my rock through this entire ordeal. And finally, Adam, looking pale and defeated in his prison jumpsuit. As I raised my right hand to be sworn in, I caught a glimpse of Kate and Ethan slipping into the back row. Their presence was a stark reminder of how far we'd all come, and how much had changed. "Mrs. Thompson," the prosecutor began, "can you please tell the court about the events leading up to your husband's arrest?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "It all started with a family dinner," I said. my voice steady despite the emotions roiling inside me. That was the night I realized the man I had loved for over 2 decades was no longer the person I thought he was. As I recounted the painful details of Adam's betrayal, his coldness towards our children, and the shocking revelation of his criminal activities, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For so long I had carried the burden of his secrets, but now finally the truth was coming to light. When I described the confrontation at our home, the day Adam and Kate had tried to force us out, I saw Adam flinch. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I had once loved, remorseful, ashamed, and utterly broken. "And how has this affected your family, Mrs. Thompson?" the prosecutor asked. I glanced at Laura and David, my heart swelling with pride. "It's been incredibly difficult," I admitted, "but it's also shown us how strong we are, both individually and as a family. We've learned to lean on each other, to find joy in the small moments, and to appreciate the time we have together." As I stepped down from the witness stand, I felt a sense of closure washing over me. The divorce papers had been filed months ago, but this, testifying against Adam, laying bare the truth of our shattered marriage, felt like the true end of that chapter of my life. The jury's deliberation was mercifully short. As the foreman read out the guilty verdict on all counts, I heard Kate's muffled sob from the back of the courtroom. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for her and Ethan. They too were victims of Adam's deception. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by my children and Elaine, I felt lighter than I had in years. The cancer treatments had taken their toll, but standing there in the warm sunshine, I was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. "Mom," Laura said, squeezing my hand, "what happens now?" I smiled, pulling both her and David close. "Now we live, we heal, we make every moment count." As we walked away from the courthouse, I caught sight of my reflection in a store window. The woman staring back at me was older, wiser, and infinitely stronger than the one who had sat down to that fateful family dinner so long ago. In the months that followed, life took on a new rhythm. There were good days and bad, moments of joy interspersed with the harsh realities of my illness. But through it all, I found a peace I had never known before. I threw myself into creating lasting memories with Laura and David, savoring every laugh, every shared meal, every quiet moment of companionship. I rekindled old friendships and forged new ones, surrounding myself with people who lifted me up and reminded me of the beauty in life. And on quiet evenings, as I sat on my porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, it had all led me to this moment of profound gratitude and contentment. I thought of Adam, serving his sentence, and hoped he would find a way to make amends with our children someday. I thought of Kate and Ethan, hoping they had found a path forward as well. But mostly I thought of the future, uncertain as it was, and felt a sense of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. Whatever time I had left, I was determined to live it fully, with an open heart and a spirit unbowed by the trials I had faced. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, I smiled to myself. This wasn't the happily ever after I had once dreamed of, but it was something far more precious. A life lived authentically, with courage and love, in spite of everything. And in the end, that was all that truly mattered.